Chapter 438. The little black dog demon did not expect that Yi Chen's casual spell would be even more powerful than its Lion King's howling bullet. This completely overturned little black dog demon's understanding. That was the truth. A low-level spell could not be compared to a high-level spell. To be precise, there was no comparison between the two. It was because of this that little black dog demon had the idea of killing Yi Chen with its demonic art. The reason little black dog demon thought so was very simple. With its physical body, it could have easily killed Yi Chen. However, the outcome was completely different from what little black dog demon had imagined. Yi Chen's physical body was weaker than little black dog demon's, but Yi Chen knew some kind of martial arts technique. Of course, it did not matter to little black dog demon what kind of technique it was. What was important was that after Yi Chen used that martial arts technique, his strength increased by 5 times, far exceeding little black dog demon's strength. After realizing this fact, the black dog demon naturally did not want to go against Yi Chen. It was not stupid, but the cruel display told it one thing. Yi Chen's physical body was not only abnormal, but his spells were also abnormal. He should have been weak, but the truth was that he was so strong that it could not accept it. Yi Chen looked at little black dog demon's shocked face and curled his lips in disdain. Then he stomped his right foot on the ground. There was a bang. Yi Chen leaped up and rushed towards little black dog demon. Little black dog demon saw this, and fear appeared on its face. After a moment of hesitation, little black dog demon gritted its teeth and turned to run. It did not want to fight with Yi Chen anymore. If it did, it felt that it would seriously doubt its life as a dog. Damn it. It was one thing for little black dog demon to be able to compete with someone of a higher level in terms of physical strength. After all, Yi Chen was from this sorcerer tribe, and the strength of his physical body was widely acknowledged. But if his spells were also strong, then it was ridiculous. It was willing to fight with Yi Chen because it was certain that it would win. But now, that certainty was gone. So how could it have the courage to continue fighting with Yi Chen? After seeing this, Yi Chen, who was dashing toward the black dog demoness, opened his eyes wide and yelled, "Stupid dog, if you dare to run, I'll shoot you to death." Not only did Yi Chen want to increase his strength in battle, he also wanted to kill the black dog to gain experience points. How could he let the black dog escape? The black dog demon shuddered when it heard the cold, murderous intent in Yi Chen's words. It had a feeling that Yi Chen really had the means to kill it. Just as the black dog demon was hesitating whether it should rely on its speed to escape, a feeling of extreme danger, as if it could die at any moment, descended upon it. Sensing the danger, black dog demon's eyes widened, and it turned to look at Yi Chen. In the next second, the black dog demon opened its mouth wide and shouted in shock, "Spirit treasure! Another spirit treasure!" Beside Yi Chen, who was dashing towards the black dog demon, the Chinquan bow and skyquake arrow had already appeared. What was even more shocking was that not only did they fly with Yi Chen, but they were also automatically cocked and aimed at the black dog demon. The black dog demon was very familiar with weapons that could attack automatically. They were at least spirit treasures, or else it would not have sensed the arrival of death. After the black dog demon finished shouting, it hurriedly stopped. It did not dare to move. It was afraid of being shot to death. Because it knew the power of a spirit treasure, it also knew that it could not escape. Even if its speed was 10 times faster, it would not be able to escape. The black dog demon looked at Yi Chen, who was dashing towards it, and its expression changed. It was very interesting. In the next second, the black dog demon asked in a low voice, Which ancestor's descendant are you? Why did you come to the lower realm?" Yi Chen, who was dashing towards it, raised his eyebrows when he heard this. Then, he jumped up with force. In the next second, there was a bang. Yi Chen landed on the ground and stopped. He looked at the black dog demon 3 meters in front of him and said with a smile, "Take a guess." The black dog demon asked Yi Chen this question because it wanted to know Yi Chen's background. In other words, it wanted to confirm Yi Chen's identity. If it was killed by Yi Chen, its backer would sense everything it knew through its bloodline and then find a way to avenge it. After Yi Chen was reborn, He knew a lot of things and knew a lot of secrets. The secrets of bloodline power were also in Yi Chen's memories. Therefore, Yi Chen saw through the Black Dog Demon's plan. It was also because he saw through it that Yi Chen continued to trick the Black Dog Demon. No matter how strong its backer was, if it wanted to cause trouble, it would cause trouble for the witch tribe. Yi Chen would not take it to heart. Bastard, aren't the witch tribe stubborn? Since when did they have such a demon like you? The Black Dog Demon was stunned when it heard this. Then, it shouted furiously. In the eyes of the Black Dog Demon, Yi Chen from the Sorcerer tribe was 2F** king perverted. How can anyone be so cunning? Which branch of the Sorcerer tribe was he from? Why did he have to be so secretive? This was 2F** king, not a sorcerer. Yi Chen looked at the Black Dog Demon and smiled. Then, he clenched his fist and said, "Stupid dog, if you don't want to die immediately, then fight me to your heart's content." The Black Dog Demon's face twisted when it heard this. F***CK. I already knew that the witch tribe liked to fight. Why is it that they also like to fight? At this thought, the Black Dog Demon looked at the Chinkoan bow that was still floating beside Yi Chen and aimed at it. Then, it looked at Yi Chen and said fiercely, "All right, if you want to fight, I'll fight you to the end. If you dare to use spiritual treasures or spells, you're the scum of the witch tribe, the trash of the eldritch land. Cut the crap and fight me." Yi Chen's eyes widened when he heard this. Then he shouted. After Yi Chen shouted, he threw a punch at the Black Dog Demon and hammered it. The Black Dog Demon saw this and gritted its teeth. Then, it threw a punch at Yi Chen. With a loud bang, Yi Chen, the Black Dog, and the little demon were sent flying back again. After a few breaths, they collided again. Bang, bang, bang. Explosions rang out one after another. The battle between Yi Chen and the Black Dog Demon was a lively one. Every punch landed on flesh, and every kick landed on vital points. However, Yi Chen and the Black Dog Demon's expressions were two extremes. Yi Chen was getting more excited as the fight went on. The Black Dog Demon was getting more and more frightened, and its face was getting paler. At first, the Black Dog Demon did not notice anything. Later on, not only did the spiritual chi of heaven and earth appear, it even formed a small tornado and poured it into Yi Chen. If the Black Dog Demon still could not figure out Yi Chen's plan, it would have lived in vain. Yi Chen, a member of the witch tribe, wanted to use it to increase his strength. The Black Dog Demon knew Yi Chen's plan, but did not dare to stop the fight with Yi Chen. Otherwise, Yi Chen would kill it. However, the speed at which Yi Chen's strength was increasing was too shocking. Later on, Yi Chen, a perverted member of the witch tribe, only relied on the strength of his physical body. He was no weaker than the Black Dog Demon when it used all its demonic powers. Because of this, the Black Dog Demon became more and more frightened as the fight went on. It was obvious that there was no way to fight against someone who was invincible just by relying on his physical body. Time passed by slowly. After the tornado, formed by the spiritual chi of heaven and earth disappeared, Yi Chen fought with the Black Dog Demon for a while. But soon, Yi Chen stopped because the speed of the spiritual chi of heaven and earth had returned to normal. Feeling the strength of his physical body and the almost full connate true origin in his body, Yi Chen could not help but smirk. Not bad, not bad. What he gained this time was equivalent to 3 years of cultivation. Chapter 439. As Yi Chen thought of this, he looked at the Black Dog Demon, whose face was pale and eyes filled with fear. Before Yi Chen could speak, the Black Dog Demon hurriedly shouted, "Yi Chen, there are only the two of us in this world. As long as you and I work together, this world will be ours. No, it will be yours. I can help you dominate this world." Obviously, the Black Dog Demon was afraid of death. It was afraid of being killed by Yi Chen. Otherwise, it would not have said that. Upon hearing this, Yi Chen glanced at little Black Dog Demon and let out a smile. The Black Dog Demon's eyes lit up at this. Just as the Black Dog Demon thought that Yi Chen wanted to dominate the world because of its words and was about to continue persuading Yi Chen raised his left hand and grabbed the heaven-earth bow. The Black Dog Demon saw this and its eyes narrowed. It then screamed, "Yi Chun, I'm the descendant of the divine beast, howling, celestial dog. One of the heavenly demons in the lion clan is my grandmother. If you dare to kill me." As the black dog demon said this, Yi Chen's right hand let go of the heaven tremor arrow. Clang! The heaven tremor arrow left the bowstring and turned into a flash of white light. The black dog demon saw this and was scared out of its wits. Without hesitation, it turned back into its original form and ran away. Yi Chen saw this and curled his lips in disdain. It was useful to turn into a big guy, but it was impossible to escape. As Yi Chen thought of this, the black dog demon, who was running for its life, suddenly jumped up. At this moment, there was a puff sound. The heaven tremor arrow hit the black dog demon's thick dog leg and went through it. A hole as big as a wash basin appeared on the black dog demon's leg. Bzzzt, beastie, beastie. Large amounts of dog blood began to spurt out, dyeing the ground red. Ouch! Mournful howls of agony followed. In the next second, the black dog demon, who had jumped up high, fell to the ground. Bang! A loud sound was instantly heard. The mountain-like body of the black dog demon fell heavily to the ground, creating a huge crater in the ground. When Yi Chen saw this, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Then, he knocked another arrow and released his right hand. Clang! The heaven-shaking arrow left the bowstring once again, and then it turned into a white light that flashed and disappeared. In the next second, a poochie sound was heard. The sky-quake arrow instantly pierced through the other leg of the black dog demon, who had just struggled to stand up and wanted to continue fleeing. Oh! The mournful howl sounded again. At the same time, a dull thud followed. Bang! The black dog demon, who had just landed and struggled to stand up, fell to the ground again. Zz, dog blood began to spurt out, and the ground was once again dyed red. At this moment, the fishy smell also drifted into the air. Yi Chen couldn't help but frown when he smelled the stench of the dog blood. The stench represented pollution. To be precise, it was poisonous. Of course, at this moment, Yi Chen's physical body did not care about this little bit of poison at all. However, 10 miles east of here was the Samsara city in the real world. Yi Chen did not want the poison in the black dog demon's dog blood to spread to the Samsara city. He did not know what this silly dog ate when it was growing up. It had become a poisonous dog. Thinking of this, Yi Chen curled his lips and waved his right hand. A sea of fire appeared in an instant, and then it enveloped the black dog demon. Boom! 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 A violent explosion sounded in an instant. The black dog demon's dog hair was burning violently. It was a spectacular sight. Yi Chun, spare me. I'll recognize you as my master. After the black dog demon's dog hair was ignited, its dog eyes suddenly opened wide, and then it screamed. It was a dog demon. Not only was it the descendant of the howling celestial dog, but it was also the descendant of a heavenly demon of the lion tribe. It had a bright future, and it did not want to die so easily. It wanted to live. Therefore, after it could not escape, it did not hesitate to lower its head and beg Yi Chun, a member of the witch tribe, to be precise, to submit to him. As long as it could live, it was willing to be the lackey of Yi Chun, a member of the witch tribe. When Yi Chen heard this, he could not help but be stunned. It was 100% impossible for a demon to recognize a master. But now, the black dog demon was obviously in existence that defied common sense, and it actually wanted to recognize a master. At this moment, the system's notification sounded. Ding! The black dog Xiao Bao wants to recognize you as its master. Do you accept? After hearing the system's notification, Yi Chun could not help but raise his eyebrows. That's right, this silly dog had the bloodline of the howling celestial dog. Although the demon's bloodline was stronger and suppressed the howling celestial dog's bloodline, it still had a trace of a divine beast's bloodline. At this thought, Yi Chun suddenly smiled. Just when the black dog demon thought that Yi Chun was tempted and was about to agree, Yi Chun opened his mouth and said, "You should have submitted from the beginning. Unfortunately, you're too stupid." Once Yi Chun finished speaking, the black dog demon's dog eyes suddenly showed extreme fear, and then it screamed, "Master, I was wrong. I was wrong. You can hit me or scold me, but I beg you, don't kill me." At this point, the black dog demon suddenly stopped. Then it opened its dog mouth, and an extremely shrill scream followed. Ouch! The extremely hot sea of fire had already burned off its dog hair, and it was starting to burn its dog's skin. Pain. It was very painful, and it was in constant pain. There was not a single part of its body that did not hurt. This was what the black dog demon was feeling at this moment. It began to howl and roll around, trying to extinguish the fire on its body. However, it was useless. No matter how it struggled, the fire continued to burn and would not be extinguished. Ouch! Master, I beg you, spare me, spare me. When the black dog demon realized that the fire could not be extinguished, its dog face suddenly became twisted. It howled and begged Yi-Chun madly for mercy. It was only now that it realized that the fire that Yi-Chun casually created was not an ordinary fire. Even a fire spell could not compare to Yi-Chun's fire. Although it did not understand the specific reason, the black dog demon knew one thing. If it wanted to live, it had to beg for mercy. It did not want to die, it wanted to live. Therefore, it begged for mercy, begging without hesitation. At this moment, other than the fear of death, the black dog demon's heart was filled with deep regret. It regretted coming to the lower realm, regretted finding trouble with Yi-Chun, regretted using up all of its demon power to fight with Yi-Chun. If it did not come to the lower realm, none of this would have happened. It would still be the young clan leader. If it did not find trouble with Yi-Chun, it could live a carefree life in this world. All it had to do was to avoid Yi-Chun. It would not have to suffer such torture. If it did not use up all of its demon power, it would not have to suffer the pain of being burned by the fire. Of course, it still had to suffer the pain of being burned by the fire. However, this process could buy it more time to beg Yi-Chun for mercy. Just as the black dog demon's face was filled with fear and regret, Yi-Chun drew his bow and shot an arrow at the black dog demon's head. No! When the black dog demon saw this, its eyes narrowed and it screamed. However, before it could finish, the heaven-quake arrow pierced through its head. At this moment, the system notification sounded. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi-Chun for the first kill of a demon. Special reward. Supreme Spiritual Stones x10. Cultivation level increase x1. Innate attribute points x300. Holy shit! This reward. Chapter 440. Not only did Yi-Chun know that the reward for the first kill was generous, but he had also achieved the first kill many times. Every time, the reward was extremely generous, and Yi-Chun did not think that the reward for this first kill would be bad. However, Yi-Chun did not expect the reward for the first kill of the Black Dog Demon to be so good that it exceeded his expectations. Take the Supreme Grade Spirit Stone, for example. It was useless for those above the immortal level. However, for existences below the immortal level, it was a super tonic. Moreover, it was the kind of super tonic that could be recycled. That was because the Supreme Grade Spirit Stone contained 100% pure and terrifying amount of Spirit Chi. More importantly, the Spirit Chi in the Supreme Grade Spirit Stone was easy to absorb and refine. Even if it was absorbed and refined casually, one's cultivation level would increase by a lot. If the Supreme Grade Spirit Stone was compared to spirit medicine or elixir pills, there was no limit to the number of times it could be used, and there would be no poisoning from consuming too many spirit medicine or elixir pills. To put it simply, using the Supreme Grade Spirit Stone to cultivate was safe, fast, and had no side effects. In fact, these were only the basic attributes of the Supreme Grade Spirit Stone. The craziest thing was that once the Spirit Chi in the Supreme Grade Spirit Stone decreased, it would automatically absorb the Spirit Chi to replenish itself. To be precise, the heaven and earth spiritual Chi in any piece of Supreme Grade Spiritual Stone was inexhaustible. It was also because of this that the Supreme Grade Spirit Stone was regarded as a super tonic by those below the immortal level. Everyone wanted to have it. Everyone wanted it. Once one had a Supreme Grade Spirit Stone, It was equivalent to cheating for cultivation. Others would need 100 years to increase their cultivation level, but with a Supreme Great Spirit Stone, they could increase their cultivation level in 10 years. It was also because of these characteristics of the Supreme Great Spirit Stone that the price of the Supreme Great Spirit Stone was terrifyingly high. In terms of numbers, one Upper Great Spirit Stone could be exchanged for 100 Middle Great Spirit Stones, and one Supreme Great Spirit Stone could easily be exchanged for 10 million Upper Great Spirit Stones. However, even if someone was willing to pay 20 million Upper Great Spirit Stones, no one would use Supreme Great Spirit Stones to exchange for it. That was because Supreme Great Spirit Stones were extremely rare, and only one could be found in a large spirit stone mine. The probability of this was so low that it was pitiful. Therefore, the value of Supreme Great Spirit Stones was extremely high. As for Yi Chun, he had received 10 Supreme Grade Spiritual Stones for killing the Black Dog Demon for the first time. One could imagine how happy Yi Chun was right now. One had to know that in Yi Chun's previous life, there were only a total of 8 top-grade spirit stones. Yi Chun, on the other hand, had gotten 10 top-grade spirit stones. Of course, the reward this time was not only 10 extreme grade spiritual stones, but also 1 realm increase and 300 innate attribute points. Realm increase X1. Without a doubt, once Yi Chun chose to use it, he could directly increase his realm without any side effects. As for the 300 innate attribute points, it would also allow Yi Chun to rapidly become stronger. As long as Yi Chun added 300 points to his martial strength, he would definitely be able to jump 3 levels. Of course, this was just an assumption. Yi Chun would never do such a thing. Even if he used innate attribute points, he would use them on his primordial spirit. And this was what Yi Chun had calculated from the start. There was no way he could change it. Moreover, Yi Chun had plenty of ways to increase his realm. He could fight, he could kill monsters, and he could also cultivate. And now, Yi Chun already had Supreme Grade Spirit Stones. Even if he cultivated and increased his realm, he would not be any slower than the other two. The reward this time was so F***king awesome. Just as Yi Chun thought of this, the system notification sounded again. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for being the first to kill the Black Dog Demon. You are rewarded with an additional 1 billion experience points. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun. You have accumulated enough experience points to advance. Do you wish to advance? Hearing this, Yi Chun's eyes widened. F***CK. What was there to hesitate about? He was not stupid. There was a Realm Increase X1 reward just now. This thing would be automatically added to him after 3 minutes. If he did not advance, then he could forget about increasing his realm by 2 levels. Thinking of this, Yi Chun made his choice without hesitation. Advance. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for advancing to the Golden Core state. Ding! Detected that player Yi Chun has advanced to the Golden Core state. Calculating the level of the Golden Core. Hearing this, Yi Chun raised his eyebrows. In his previous life, this method of calculating the level of the Golden Core made countless people regret it because they were not prepared enough. None of them were able to form a high-level Golden Core. He was not prepared either. However, this method of calculating the level of the Golden Core was useless to him. The Golden Core state was the next realm after the Mortal Evolution state. Its symbol was the formation of a golden core in the body. There were good and bad golden cores. 1 star was the worst, while 9 stars was the strongest. If one was well prepared, such as calming down before advancing, preparing large amounts of spirit herbs, setting up spirit gathering formations, and preparing large amounts of spirit stones, one could definitely increase the level of the golden core by a few stars. Once one became a 9-star golden core, one would have an extremely strong starting point. Following that would be a great future. To be precise, if one became a 9-star golden core, then after passing the flying celestial tribulation, there was a high chance that one would become a heaven immortal. As for 8-star golden cores and below, there was a 100% chance that one would not become a heaven immortal. Even if one did not consider this and only considered the current situation, a 9-star golden core was an insane existence. As long as one was in the same realm, a 9-star golden core possessor could completely crush other star golden core possessors. Yi-chun was reborn, so he naturally knew this. However, Yi-chun received the reward of leveling up X1, so he could not continue to accumulate experience without leveling up. Otherwise, Yi-chun would lose a lot of experience. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that Yi-chun was confident from the start and did not care about the system's calculation of the level of the golden core. Otherwise, why would Yi-chun choose to level up and advance? Just as Yi-chun thought of this, the system notification sounded again. Ding! Detected chaos level cultivation method. 9 revolutions mystic art. Special conditions activated. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi-chun for officially advancing to the golden core state. Golden core grade is chaos level. Hearing this, the corners of Yi-chun's mouth twitched. So, it was true. There were stronger golden cores than 9-star golden cores, but only those who had seen Pangu's creation and obtained the cultivation method could reach that level. Just as Yi-chun thought of this, the connate true essence that had filled his dantian suddenly began to boil and then quickly circulated around in Yi-chun's body. At the same time, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth within a radius of 10,000 miles that was originally pouring into Samsara City suddenly changed direction and rushed toward Yi-chun. The moment the change began, the originally cloudless sky suddenly became covered with dark clouds. Yi-chun, who was feeling the changes inside and outside his body, suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the sky. Heavenly tribulation. Damn it, I just leveled up. Why did I attract heavenly tribulation? Thinking of this, Yi-chun hurriedly looked at Flaming Tiger Yilin, who was still chasing after the army of monsters, and then shouted, "Yilin, get out of here, quickly!" Chapter 441. In the distance, Flaming Tiger Yilin, who was chasing after the evil beast army, was shocked when she heard this. Flaming Tiger Yilin noticed the abnormality in the sky immediately. However, she didn't find any danger, so she was just surprised. But now, Yi-chun's order for her to leave as soon as possible undoubtedly told her one thing. There was danger here, and the source of the danger was the sky. After all, the Black Dog Demon of the Demon Clan had been killed by Yi-chun. The rest were just a bunch of trash at the evil beast level. Even if there were tens of millions of them, it would be useless. Not to mention Yi-chun, Flaming Tiger, Yilin alone could kill these evil beasts. Moreover, the evil beast army started to flee after the Black Dog Demon was killed. It was impossible for them to be in any danger. After coming to her senses, Flaming Tiger, Yilin hurriedly looked at Yi-chun and shouted, "Brother, be careful." Flaming Tiger Yilin's words were full of anxiety. Obviously, she was worried that Yi-chun might be in danger. Hearing this, Yi-chun felt warm in his heart. He nodded and shouted, "Leave as soon as possible. The farther, the better. Don't go back to Samsara City for the time being." The Heaven's tribulation was targeted at Yi-chun. Naturally, it wouldn't target anyone else. Otherwise, Flaming Tiger Yilin would definitely sense it. Of course, if Flaming Tiger Yilin didn't leave, the Heaven's tribulation would also take her into consideration and lock onto her. Once the Heaven's tribulation locked onto Flaming Tiger Yilin, the power of the Heaven's tribulation would increase rapidly because of the Flaming Tiger Yilin's participation. In this way, Yi-chun would have to take care of Flaming Tiger Yilin. Yi-chun didn't know the type and power of the Heaven's tribulation. With Flaming Tiger Yilin, the uncertainty was even greater. This was not the result Yi-chun wanted to see. Therefore, Yi-chun asked the Flaming Tiger Yilin to leave quickly. When the Flaming Tiger Yilin heard this, she nodded her head heavily. Then, she gave up on chasing after the fleeing monster army and rushed into the distance. Flaming Tiger Yilin didn't know what the danger was, but that didn't stop her from worrying. Yi-chun was her master. She didn't want to see Yi-chun in any danger. But now she couldn't stay. If she stayed, she would definitely affect Yi-chun. She could tell. The army of demonic beasts that were fleeing for their lives were all stunned when they saw that the Flaming Tiger Yilin had actually given up on pursuing them and was instead running away. Although they couldn't understand Flaming Tiger Yilin's actions, it didn't stop them from being pleasantly surprised, because they were safe for the time being. Of course, the demonic beast didn't forget that there was an even more abnormal being here. It was Yi Chun, the most powerful man in the human clan. For the demonic beasts, they would rather be chased by the Flaming Tiger Yilin than by Yi Chun, the most powerful man in the human clan. If they were chased by the Flaming Tiger Yilin, they still had a chance to survive. If they were chased by Yi Chun, the most powerful man in the human clan, their chances of survival were pitifully small. In the next second, the demonic beasts looked at Yi Chun in unison. When they saw that Yi Chun was still standing there, they all breathed a sigh of relief. Then, they fled even more desperately into the distance. They wanted to leave, to get far away from here. They would never come to Samsara City again, and they would never make trouble for Yi Chun again. At this moment, the army of demonic beasts had completely understood one thing. Yi Chun, the most powerful man in the human clan, was a super abnormal being. If they wanted to live, they had to stay away from Yi Chun. Yi Chun glanced at the army of demonic beasts that were fleeing for their lives. He curled his lips in disdain and then looked up at the sky. Why would there be a heavenly tribulation? Damn it. In his previous life, he had never even heard of a heavenly tribulation, let alone seen one in real life. At this thought, Yi Chun's eyes suddenly widened. Holy shit. No, if there was a heavenly tribulation in the Golden Core realm, then wouldn't there be one in the Purple Mansion realm as well? Damn it. What kind of holy shit was this? After thinking about it, Yi Chun looked up at the sky that had already turned as dark as night. At this moment, a blue lightning bolt suddenly appeared and cut through the darkness. Boom! Crack, crack, crack. The dull and loud sound of thunder followed closely behind. At the same time, an oppressive, tyrannical, and domineering force began to gather in the sky. Seeing this, Yi Chun narrowed his eyes. It was coming. Boom! Crack, crack, crack. A thick lightning bolt instantly appeared and struck Yi Chun. In the blink of an eye, it struck Yi Chun's head. Buzz, 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 buzz. The lightning wreaked havoc on Yi Chun's body, and the sound of electric currents followed. However, Yi Chun's body didn't show any abnormalities. Not only did his hair not stand up, but his skin also didn't show any signs of turning black. If there had to be abnormalities, it would be the electric currents that appeared after striking Yi Chun and the lightning that kept flashing in Yi Chun's eyes. After feeling the power of the first heavenly tribulation, Yi Chun couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Holy shit, you scared me. I thought the heavenly tribulation would be strong, but it turned out to be so weak. There was no problem at all. Moreover, the Divine Knight lightning controlling technique would also improve by quite a bit. This was a freaking freeloading of benefits. He just didn't know what the heavenly tribulation was targeting. Just as Yi Chun thought of this, Flaming Tiger Yilin, who saw this scene from afar, was shocked. Then she shouted, "Brother!" She would never have thought that Yi Chun would ask her to leave because of this. Flaming Tiger Yilin knew very well what kind of existence the heavenly tribulation was. And now, Yi Chun was undergoing the heavenly tribulation. How could Flaming Tiger Yilin not be worried? Yi Chun smiled when he heard this. Then he shouted, "It's fine. Don't come over." Yi Chun's heavenly tribulation wasn't over yet. Naturally, he didn't want Flaming Tiger Yilin to come over. As for the reason, it was very simple. The power of each heavenly tribulation was stronger than the previous one. Yi Chun could barely withstand the last one. If Yilin came over, Yi Chun wouldn't be able to withstand it without using the Khanate spiritual treasure. But if he used the Khanate spiritual treasure, how could Yi Chun use the heavenly tribulation to cultivate the Shun Xiao lightning-wielding technique? Flaming Tiger Yilin was slightly stunned when she heard this. She also didn't expect Yi Chun to be able to withstand the heavenly tribulation without any problems. After coming back to her senses, Flaming Tiger Yilin nodded heavily. Then she shouted, "Brother, be careful." In the distance, the army of monsters that were fleeing for their lives stopped one by one. Then they looked at Yi Chun, who was struck by lightning. Their eyes immediately widened. They also saw the strange changes in the sky, but they thought it was just a sudden change in the weather. But now, there was suddenly lightning, and it was striking Yichun. How could they not be stunned? Holy shit, Yichun was struck by lightning. What's going on? Why was Yichun struck by lightning out of the blue? What do you mean out of the blue? Damn, this is Yichun's heavenly tribulation. Heavenly tribulation? Then why don't we wait and see? What if Yichun is really struck to death? Then we don't have to run at all. I think it's better for us to retreat quickly. Yichun is too crazy. He could even kill Lord Black Dog. You can imagine how crazy he is. If the heavenly tribulation doesn't strike him to death, then we'll be in deep trouble. Little Hedgehog is right. If Yichun isn't struck to death by the heavenly tribulation, then it'll be too late for us to run. All right then, let's keep running. After the army of monsters finished speaking, they began to flee into the distance. Yichun looked at the army of monsters that suddenly stopped and then began to flee. He curled his lips in disdain. When I'm done with the heavenly tribulation, all of you will die. No one can escape. Chapter 442. As soon as Yichun thought of this, the second heavenly tribulation descended instantly. Boom! Crack! A bolt of lightning that was twice as thick as the previous one struck Yichun's head instantly. Sizzle! Sizzle! Tiny electric snakes instantly appeared all over Yichun's body and burned Yichun's body wantonly. However, not only was Yichun fine, but he was also constantly absorbing and refining the tiny electric snakes. A few seconds later, Yichun's eyes widened abruptly. Damn it! His physical body had actually become stronger as well. At the thought of this, Yichun hurriedly sensed the increasing strength in his body and his increasingly powerful defense. In the next second, Yichun looked up to the sky and laughed wildly in excitement. This heavenly tribulation felt great. Not only did it improve the Shunshao lightning controlling technique rapidly, but his physical body also became stronger. As soon as Yichun thought of this, the third heavenly tribulation descended instantly. Boom! Crack! Once, twice, thrice, thrice, the bolts of lightning that were getting thicker struck Yichun again and again. Yichun's physical strength and the Shunshao lightning controlling technique improved by leaps and bounds time after time. If anyone saw Yichun's current state, they would definitely be dumbfounded. Mother Asterisker, not only did Yichun not die from being struck by lightning, it could be said that he was lucky. But after being struck by lightning continuously, and each strike was stronger than the last, he should have been struck to death. But the reality was that not only was Yichun not dead, he was completely fine. What made people even more speechless was that Yichun actually enjoyed being struck by lightning, and the aura he exuded was getting stronger and stronger. It was obvious that Yichun had become stronger again. Boom! Crack! After a thunderous sound that shook heaven and earth, a bolt of lightning that was as thick as a water tank suddenly descended. At this moment, Yichun's scalp went numb involuntarily. Damn it! The ninth bolt was a little beyond his expectations. As soon as Yichun thought of this, intense pain instantly spread all over his body. ZZZZ. Countless thick lightning bolts kept drilling in and out of Yichun's body, wantonly destroying Yichun's body. In just a breath, the smell of barbecued meat wafted from Yichun's body. Damn it! Yichun's face darkened when he sensed the abnormality in his body. Yichun had never imagined that the 9 heavenly tribulations would be so powerful that it would be even more powerful than the previous 8 heavenly tribulations combined. To be precise, Yichun was instantly injured by the 9th tribulation. Pain. It was very painful. The pain was so deep that it seeped into his bones. That was what Yichun was feeling right now. Yichun's body was constantly being damaged and destroyed, and then repaired by the innate true origin, again and again. Soon, an unbearable numbness and itchiness appeared. Yichun's entire body was instantly tormented beyond belief. At this moment, Yichun's 9 revolutions mysterious art and the Shunshao Imperial Thunder technique began to run wildly. The feeling of pain and numbness and itchiness became even more intense. 1 second, 2 seconds, It wasn't until the 10th second that the lightning bolts that constantly surrounded Yi Chen's body disappeared. At the same time, the pain and numbness that had been tormenting Yi Chen for 10 seconds finally dissipated. In the next second, an incomparably comfortable feeling appeared in Yi Chen's body, and then spread to all parts of his body. At this moment, the system notification sounded. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for successfully passing the test and officially advancing to the Golden Elixir realm, becoming an Ancient Cultivator. Yi Chen was stunned when he heard this. Ancient Cultivator? What the hell was that? Even though Yi Chen had been reborn, he had never heard of Ancient Cultivators. Naturally, he was confused. After thinking for a moment, Yi Chen really couldn't figure it out, so he simply stopped thinking about it. No matter what he became, as long as he became stronger, that was enough. However, just as Yi Chen gave up thinking about Ancient Cultivators, his eyes suddenly widened. Where's my Golden Elixir? Yi Chen had never thought that advancing to the Golden Elixir realm would cause him to be bombarded by the heavenly tribulation. Now that he had succeeded, something even more unexpected happened. The Golden Elixir that should have been condensed was gone. Thinking of this, Yi Chen hurriedly released his divine sense to check his body. However, what shocked Yi Chen was that there was no Golden Elixir in his body. How could there be no Golden Elixir? Just as Yi Chen thought of this, the system notification sounded. Ding! Player Yi Chen, do you want to give up your identity as an Ancient Cultivator? If you do, your Golden Elixir will be 9 stars. After the system notification ended, Yi Chen's face darkened. Damn it! Why do I feel like there's a conspiracy here? Wait, Golden Elixir. Golden Elixir Realm seems to have magical powers. Thinking of this, Yi Chen hurriedly checked the situation in his body. In the next second, Yi Chen's eyes widened. Ancient Cultivator. So this is what an Ancient Cultivator is like. Damn it, it's not that I don't have a Golden Elixir, but my entire body is a Golden Elixir. The Golden Elixir is the essence and is extremely hard, far surpassing the physical body. If this goes on, to what extent will my physical body become? Could it be that Ancient Cultivators learned from the Sorcerer race and cultivated their physical bodies? No, the Sorcerer race doesn't have a primordial spirit. No matter what kind of cultivator they are, they all have a primordial spirit. Thinking of this, Yi Chen's eyes lit up. Damn it, it's hard not to be a pervert now. No one's as big as my Golden Elixir. Furthermore, using my physical body as a Golden Elixir. Damn it, there's no flaw at all. The Golden Elixir was the source of a cultivator's power. There were many methods or medicines that specifically targeted the Golden Elixir. Once the Golden Elixir was restricted, the person who was restricted would definitely become a weakling. And Yi Chen's entire body was a Golden Elixir. However, Yi Chen's body wasn't an orthodox Golden Elixir. So Yi Chen had all the abilities of a Golden Elixir, but didn't have the weaknesses of a Golden Elixir. And to Yi Chen, this was undoubtedly a great thing. The Eldritch World didn't only have Eldritch World aboriginals. There were also people from other worlds with all kinds of strange abilities. But there was one thing that they all had in common. That was, whoever was stronger was the boss. If they were dissatisfied, they would be dissatisfied. Yi Chen had no intention of being someone else's underling. And now, Yi Chen had become an Ancient Cultivator. The weakness of a Golden Elixir didn't exist for Yi Chen. Not only that, Yi Chen's magical powers would make him an emperor among cultivators of the same level. One could imagine how excited Yi Chen was at this moment. Damn it, Ancient Cultivators were indeed not ordinary. Just as Yi Chen thought of this, the system's notification sounded again. Ding! Player Yi Chen, do you want to give up your identity as an Ancient Cultivator? Give up your grandpa. Yi Chen didn't even think and immediately chose no. What kind of joke was this? Ancient Cultivators were far more powerful than ordinary players. Yi Chen wouldn't be so stupid as to give up his identity as an Ancient Cultivator. Damn it, today's luck was great. Thinking of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but laugh wildly. At this moment, the system's notification sounded again. Ding! Level Up X1 has officially entered countdown. After 5 seconds, if player Yi Chen doesn't choose, it will be considered as giving up. Hearing this, Yi Chen's mouth couldn't help but twitch. Then, without hesitation, he chose to use it. In the next second, the system's notification sounded again. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for advancing to the Purple Mansion realm. Ding! Detecting cultivation technique. Ding! Detecting chaos level cultivation technique. 9 revolutions mysterious art. Chaos level cultivation technique. Heavenly Knight lightning manipulation technique. Player Yi Chun meets the special requirements for advancement. The system is calculating. Ding! Detecting player Yi Chun's identity as an ancient cultivator. Recalculating. Chapter 443. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for fulfilling the special conditions. You have officially advanced to the Purple Mansion realm, and your profession has advanced to Immemorial Cultivator. As soon as the system notification ended, Yi Chun was stunned. Immemorial Cultivator. Holy shit, my profession has advanced again. Just as Yi Chun thought of this, the heaven and earth energy within a radius of 10,000 miles seemed to have encountered some kind of suction force and crazily poured into Yi Chun. At the same time, Yi Chun's consciousness, which was originally in a state of chaos, suddenly opened up a space the size of a mung bean, and Yi Chun's consciousness began to automatically converge towards this space. Feeling this change, Yi Chun's eyes suddenly opened wide. Primordial spirit transformation. Holy shit, immemorial cultivators are so sick. They actually advanced by 1 realm and could already transform their primordial spirit at the Purple Mansion realm. Thinking of this, Yi Chun suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed maniacally. Awesome. This was 2F King awesome. Transforming one's primordial spirit in advance was no different from advancing by another realm. Under normal circumstances, when a cultivator advanced to the Purple Mansion realm, they would only open up their consciousness and form a Purple Mansion, where their primordial spirit would then reside and be nourished. Once their primordial spirit was strong enough, they would advance to the next realm and transform their primordial spirit. As for Yi Chun, not only did his Purple Mansion realm begin, his primordial spirit had also transformed. To Yi Chun, this was naturally the best thing that could happen. After all, Yi Chun's primordial spirit had transformed at the Purple Mansion realm and directly possessed abilities that only cultivators of the next realm could possess. For example, astral travel, spell enhancement, control of small heaven and earth, etc. All sorts of abilities, and they were not weak at all. In this way, Yi Chun's primordial spirit would be terrifyingly strong if he advanced again. The stronger the primordial spirit, the more sick Yi Chun's strength would be. This was without a doubt. Of course, this was relative to those of the same realm. It was incomparable to those of the immortal realm and above. Thinking of this, Yi Chun's eyebrows involuntarily raised. At this moment, the dark clouds in the sky suddenly rolled, and then became darker and darker, lower and lower. In less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the world became as dark as ink, without the slightest bit of light. Yi Chun, who was in the midst of his excitement, suddenly widened his eyes when he saw this. F***CK, you're going to be struck by lightning just because you've obtained a perverted job class. What the F***CK? Is there still justice in this world? Thinking of this, Yi Chun moved his mind and the acquired spiritual treasures, the Chinquan bow and heaven-shaking arrow, instantly appeared beside Yi Chun. Glancing at the heaven-shaking arrow and cosmos bow, Yi Chun raised his left hand and grabbed the cosmos bow. At the same time, he knocked 3 heaven-shaking arrows on the bowstring. Seeing this, Yi Chun smiled and grabbed with his right hand. Then he raised the bow of heaven and earth, aimed it at the sky, and pulled with all his might. Boom! The sound of thunder that shook the heavens and the earth suddenly rang out. It sounded like anger and a warning. Yi Chun curled his lips in disdain when he heard the thunderous roar and loosened his right hand. Clang! The 3 heaven-shaking arrows instantly left the bowstring, and then turned into 3 streams of light, spiraling into the sky. Buzz! Wong! Wong! The buzzing sound of the heaven-shaking arrows stirring the air was instantly heard, and then it quickly became louder. In the next second, a small tornado appeared in an instant, and then it quickly became stronger, bigger, and more ferocious, sweeping towards the dark clouds in the sky. The dark clouds in the sky seemed to have been provoked, and they churned even more violently, like boiling water, crazily rolling. At this moment, thousands of thunder pythons with strong pressure suddenly appeared in the dark clouds. They seemed to have been provoked and crazily darted around in the dark clouds, as if they were looking for a target to vent their anger on. Boom! Crack! Crack! A series of deafening thunderous roars followed the appearance of the thunder pythons and resounded between the heavens and the earth. The thunderous roars shook Yi Chen's ears, and even the earth shook a few times. One could imagine how loud the thunderous roars were this time. Yi Chen listened to the thunderous roars and looked at the thunder pythons that had just appeared and disappeared in an instant. He curled his lips in disdain. I can't absorb this heavenly tribulation, but I have a way to resist it. However, I don't plan to resist it. I'll destroy you directly. Just as Yi Chen thought of this, countless lightnings suddenly appeared in the huge tornado formed by the 3 heaven-shaking arrows. Seeing this, Yi Chen couldn't help but laugh wildly. I want to see if the heavenly tribulation is more powerful, or if my cosmic bow is more powerful. Boom! 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 Continuous thunderous roars followed from the huge tornado. In the next second, the huge tornado rushed into the rolling dark clouds, and then flew towards the sky with the dark clouds. A huge funnel appeared immediately, and more dark clouds were uncontrollably sucked in. Boom! Crack! Boom! Crack! Intense, thunderous roars followed closely behind and did not stop after that. Thunder pythons and thunder pythons appeared in the huge tornado one after another. A few seconds later, countless thunder dragons as thick as water tanks also appeared. Seeing this, Yi Chen couldn't help but frown. Damn it, the heavenly tribulation this time is really powerful. If I take it head-on, I'll definitely die. However, this rare profession was really the envy of the heavens. Ancient cultivators were struck by lightning, and ancient cultivators were struck by lightning as well. Furthermore, they were struck by lightning while they were advancing to the next realm. If it were anyone else, it would be strange if they didn't die. Fortunately, I'm lucky to have a Khanate cardinal treasure and a Khanate spirit treasure. Even the worst cosmic bow can easily break this bulsh asterisk T heavenly tribulation. Thinking of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. Boom! Crack! Boom! Crack! The violent thunderous roars became louder, and the vibrations caused by the thunderous roars could be felt in the air. The dark clouds in the sky began to circle and circle, and their speed became faster and faster. Then, they were carried away by the huge tornado. Time passed slowly. After the huge tornado was completely filled with lightning, the sky and earth were completely illuminated by lightning. In the distance, the army of monsters that were fleeing in panic shuddered when they saw this. They all knew that Yi Chen was undergoing a heavenly tribulation, but they didn't expect that Yi Chen would undergo a second heavenly tribulation after the first. Of course, to the monsters, it would be best if Yi Chen was struck to death by the heavenly tribulation. However, they didn't expect that the second heavenly tribulation, which was obviously more powerful, would be broken by Yi Chen. This wasn't what they wanted to see, but it was the reality. The second heavenly tribulation was about to dissipate before it even appeared. This result undoubtedly told them one thing. Yi Chen wasn't a freak, but a super freak. Damn it, I'm never coming to Samsara City again. I won't come to anyone who asks me to. This Yi Chen is not human. I'm not coming either. I'm going to stay away from Yi Chen. Damn it, I don't want to die. Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and run. After Yi Chen breaks through the heavenly tribulation, he'll definitely hunt us down. Tens of millions of demonic beasts once again ran for their lives. Chapter 444. Although many of the beasts were rash, They knew very well how the gigantic tornado in the sky was formed. To the beasts, being able to withstand the heavens' tribulations was already abnormal. But what Yi Chun did was even more abnormal. He destroyed the heavens' tribulations. How could they not be afraid of such an existence? How could they not run? After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the thick dark clouds in the sky began to thin and fade. The sun, which had been sealed for a long time, shone through the clouds and onto the ground. It was as if dawn was breaking, and the darkness was dispelled. Yi Chun looked at the gigantic tornado in the sky, which was surrounded by lightning. He couldn't help but smirk. The heavens' tribulations had been broken. Just as Yi Chun thought of this, the system's notification rang out. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for successfully passing the heavens' tribulations. Purple Palace firmness plus 100 permanently. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for successfully transforming his primordial spirit. The moment the system's notification ended, Yi Chun's eyes widened. Holy shit, there was actually such a reward. The Purple Palace was where the primordial spirit was stored. The stronger it was, the harder it was to be invaded. The so-called primordial spirit could be some kind of evil energy or someone else's consciousness. It could also be someone else's primordial spirit. And amongst all of these, the most serious was the invasion of another's primordial spirit. Once the Purple Palace was invaded by another's primordial spirit, a battle between the primordial spirits would occur. If the primordial spirits couldn't win, then there was only one outcome, which was to be possessed. And now, because Yi Chun had successfully passed the heavens' tribulations, he was directly rewarded with a Purple Palace firmness plus 100 permanently. This meant that Yi Chun's Purple Palace would be able to withstand attacks from anyone below the immortal level. Even if the opponent's primordial spirit was much stronger than Yi Chun's, Yi Chun wouldn't have to worry about being possessed. To Yi Chun, this was naturally a great thing. One had to know that after ascending to the Eldritch world, any living being would have a primordial spirit. If one met an unfortunate person who died and had an extremely strong primordial spirit, then there was a high possibility of being possessed. If that happened, Yi Chun's everything would be taken over by someone else. This was not something that Yi Chun wanted to see. Of course, Yi Chun wasn't too worried about this. After all, Yi Chun still had a Khanate cardinal treasure to protect him. If anyone wanted to seize Yi Chun's body, they wouldn't be able to do so unless they had a Khanate cardinal treasure. Of course, the advantage of having a sufficiently sturdy Violet Palace was not only to prevent possession, but also to resist soul-type spells. Soul-type magic was a very obscure magic. It did not belong to the 5 elements. It could not be seen or touched, and could be used in an instant. It specialized in attacking the soul, or rather, the primordial spirit. Once he was hit by a soul-type magic art, his combat strength would drop by 100%. As for how much, that would depend on the degree of influence. Of course, if one's primordial spirit was not strong enough, it was very likely that one would die directly. And for Yi Chun, this had a huge impact. Because Yi Chun's Khanate cardinal treasures and Khanate spiritual treasures were all offensive treasures. The only one that had defensive abilities was the Fire Spirit Pearl. However, the Fire Spirit Pearl was more of an attack than a defense. Its defense against soul-type magic arts was basically negligible. Therefore, the permanent plus 100 sturdiness of his Violet Palace was very important to Yi Chun. In this way, after Yi Chun ascended to the Untainted Land, his resistance against soul-type magic arts would be greatly improved. If he encountered such an existence in the future, Yi Chun would have the opportunity to use his strongest means to kill it. Otherwise, Yi Chun would be tortured. This was not something that Yi Chun wanted to see. Thinking of this, Yi Chun's divine sense moved and immediately looked at the Violet Palace in his sea of consciousness. In the next second, Yi Chun could not help but be stunned. Damn it, this is my Violet Palace. If someone saw Yi Chun's Violet Palace, they would definitely be dumbfounded. Other people's Violet Palaces were a sphere or a sealed space. It was very monotonous and had nothing in it. However, Yi Chun's Violet Palace was not like this. Yi Chun's Violet Palace was very big, and its appearance was unexpectedly in the shape of a palace. There were bricks, tiles, stairs, a palace door, and richly ornamented rafters. It was a spectacular sight. What was going on? Was this the unique violet palace of the immemorial cultivators? Thinking of this, Yichen looked at the violet palace again, and then used his divine sense to enter the palace door. When he came to the main hall, Yichen's divine sense saw the primordial spirit that was closing its eyes and meditating. The primordial spirit was exactly the same as Yichen. If it was not a little smaller, anyone who saw it would not hesitate to think that it was Yichen. At this moment, Yichen's primordial spirit had just taken shape and could not be used immediately. It still needed to be meditated. Otherwise, Yichen would not have to rely on the scattered divine sense floating in the sea of consciousness to check the violet palace, let alone look directly from the outside. Glancing at the primordial spirit that was meditating, Yichen immediately looked at the violet palace. When Yichen saw the two golden pillars in the violet palace, carved with the image of Yinhu and the treasure-hunting fish, he could not help but be stunned. After turning around, Yichen's eyes suddenly lit up. Damn it, it seemed that he could directly communicate with his soul. Thinking of this, Yichen looked directly at the pillar carved with Yinhu and said directly, "Yilin, you can return to Samsara City." As soon as Yichen finished speaking, the voice of the flaming tiger, Yilin, suddenly sounded from the pillar. "Brother, you are my head." When Yichen heard this, he could not help but raise his eyebrows. It was really like this. Thinking of this, Yichen spoke again. "No, it's just some small tricks. Okay, you can go to Samsara City now. Remember to bring back the body of the black dog. It's a great supplement." The black dog demon came from the untainted world. Its realm was high, its strength was strong, and its body was full of energy. If one ate it, one's strength would definitely increase by a lot. Of course, Yichen was not interested in this, but the flaming tiger Yilin could be eaten. For Yichen, the stronger the flaming tiger Yilin was, the safer Yichen would be in the real world. Therefore, if there was a way to increase the strength of the flaming tiger Yilin, Yichen would naturally not waste it casually. "Okay, brother." The flaming tiger Yilin's ecstatic voice suddenly sounded. Hearing this, Yichen could not help but smile. Moving his divine sense, he left the violet palace. In the next second, Yichen opened his eyes. He raised his right hand and waved in the direction of the demonic beast army. At this moment, 10,000 meters in the sky, the three sky-shattering arrows that were controlling the tornado to fly upward suddenly changed direction and rushed in the direction of the demonic beast army. Rumble! Tens of thousands of demonic beasts galloped and the earth rumbled. Tens of millions of demonic beasts fled desperately in the direction of Samsara City. Along the way, smoke and dust billowed and trees were destroyed. In the sky, flocks of birds covered the sky and the sun. At this moment, a cry of surprise suddenly sounded from the sky. That's... Damn it, why is that tornado chasing after us? Spread out, spread out. Screams of surprise sounded in waves. At first, it was the demonic beasts in the sky, then the demonic beasts on the ground. They had never expected that the huge tornado that was completely filled with lightning in the sky. It was originally flying in the sky, but now, not only did it change direction, but it also rushed in their direction. Chapter 445. Just as the demonic beast army was running for their lives, the gigantic tornado arrived with a destructive aura. Ga, screech. The miserable cries of countless birds could be heard all over the place. The birds ran for their lives. However, it was useless. No matter how fast they were not faster than the gigantic tornado controlled by the three sky-shaking arrows. In an instant, countless birds were sucked into the gigantic tornado. Then, they were smashed by the lightning in the tornado. Bird feathers danced in the wind and blood splattered everywhere. Even the fastest birds could only struggle for 2 seconds before they were sucked into the gigantic tornado and died. On the ground, The beasts that were running for their lives were scared out of their wits when they saw the tragic situation in the sky. Then, they ran for their lives. They all wanted to escape. No one wanted to be sucked into the gigantic tornado. However, it was useless. In less than 2 seconds, the gigantic tornado cleared the birds in the sky and landed on the ground. Boom, boom, boom. The destructive power of the gigantic tornado exploded. The wind whistled, the trees danced, and the leaves flew. The soil and stones on the ground flew up and merged into the gigantic tornado. Bang, bang, bang. The dancing trees were uprooted in the blink of an eye. Then, they were smashed by the lightning and turned into its shavings that swirled in the wind. At this moment, the gigantic tornado was still filled with countless lightning. However, its color had been dyed red. It was the color of the blood of countless demonic beasts. They did not fall to the ground but danced in the wind. It was filled with countless miscellaneous items. There were bird feathers, stones, mud, wood shavings, and eerie white bones. A powerful suction force and a tyrannical destructive power flashed past along with the gigantic tornado. Demonic beasts, trees, and everything on the ground could not escape the suction of the gigantic tornado. Sucked in, smashed, sucked in again, and smashed again. The gigantic tornado kept repeating this action. No! Who can save me? Save me! A green wolf clawed at the ground with its 4 claws as it cried out in a shrill voice. Save me! I'll give treasures to whoever saves me. A monkey hugged a tree tightly and screamed in horror. Save me! Save me! Who can save me? I'll be his partner. The demonic beasts on the ground were begging for help from their fellow demonic beasts one after another. They were begging for help in a panic. However, it was useless. As soon as it finished shouting, it was sucked into the huge tornado, and its body exploded into countless pieces. Blood, flesh, bones, and wolf fur were all sucked into the huge tornado, swirling with the wind. As for the monstrous beasts that heard their cries, they had no intention of saving them. At this moment, all the monstrous beasts were powerless to protect themselves. How could they save them? The demonic beasts were all running for their lives, trying to get out of the range of the giant tornado. However, it was useless. Even the demonic beasts who had changed directions early on when they saw the giant tornado rushing over could not escape the strong suction force of the giant tornado. Because the super large tornado was extremely fast and its diameter was too big, there was no way they could escape. Boom, boom, boom. The gigantic tornado wreaked havoc on the earth, devouring everything. It didn't matter if it was alive or not. Wherever the gigantic tornado passed, it would devour and crush everything without mercy. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 5 seconds later, all the monstrous beasts on the ground were swept away by the gigantic tornado without exception. Each glanced at the new road that was more than 10 kilometers long, and his eyebrows couldn't help but raise. The destructive power of this gigantic tornado was really not to be trifled with. Thinking of this, Yi-chan snapped his right hand. Snap! In the next second, the 3 sky-shaking arrows instantly changed direction and flew towards the sky. The gigantic tornado that was completely red immediately changed direction and flew towards the sky. The destructive power of the gigantic tornado was too great, and Yi-chan did not want to let it continue to destroy. This was Yi-chan's territory. If the surroundings were to become barren, Yi-chan would not like it. A few seconds later, the gigantic tornado completely rose into the sky. When it flew to a height of 100,000 meters, the 3 sky-shaking arrows flashed and disappeared. Yi-chan raised his head and glanced at the gigantic tornado that could no longer wreak havoc on the ground. He smiled and then moved his mind. In the next second, Yi-chan directly rose into the sky and flew towards Samsara City. At this moment, Yi-chan was already an Archean cultivator of the Purple Mansion realm. Flying was a piece of cake for Yi-chan. He did not even need to use the army character formula. After Yi-chan left, the safe city in the distance was in an uproar. The people there were all panicked and looked in the direction of Samsara city with longing. When the heavenly tribulation descended, the world was dark. Then, lightning flashed and thunder roared continuously. At one glance, one could tell that the power was terrifying. It was not an ordinary thunder at all. No matter who saw this scene, their hearts would be in suspense. All of this happened too suddenly. It was as if the end of the world had come. How could they not be afraid and nervous? If it was before the meteor fell, people might not think too much. However, it was different now. People were used to things that science could not explain. Whenever there was a wind blowing or grass blowing in the wind, people would think about all kinds of things. In the end, they would be scared out of their wits and live in fear. The first heavenly tribulation scared everyone who ran to the streets to rest. It also scared everyone who was in the game offline. After the second heavenly tribulation was broken by Yi Chun and turned into a gigantic tornado, people were scared out of their wits. The gigantic tornado flying into the sky was not scary. What was scary was that it turned and rushed to the ground. Then it flew parallel to the ground and flew towards a safe city. The gigantic tornado was too big. Its diameter alone was 10 kilometers. It was hard not to see it. It was also because the people in the safe city saw it that they were all panicking. The safe city was safe. Monsters could not enter. However, the gigantic tornado was not a monster. If it descended on the safe city, people would die. No one thought that he could survive. This was because the gigantic tornado was not only big, but it was also abnormal. It was so abnormal that it was covered in lightning. No one thought that they could escape from this abnormal gigantic tornado. Damn it, this tornado won't change direction again. Don't jinx it. Damn it. It can't change its direction again. If it changes direction again, once it flies here, we will all be finished. What the hell is going on? Why did this suddenly appear? Its power is too terrifying. I don't know. I just hope that this abnormal tornado will not appear again. Otherwise, we will not be able to escape. I also hope that this thing will not appear. I'm still a virgin. In the real world, Samsara City, the Castellan's mansion. After flying back, Yi Chun replenished the automatic defense arrow tower with some spiritual stones. He also gave some instructions to the flaming tiger Yi Lin. Then, he walked to the diamond-level game chamber and lay down inside. When the diamond-level game chamber was closed, Yi Chun entered the game world again. In the game world, Samsara City, the Castellan's mansion, a beam of light suddenly appeared in the sky. Yi Chun, who had left the game world for a long time, appeared immediately. The beam of light dissipated. Yi Chun immediately opened his eyes. At this moment, a shout suddenly sounded. "Husband!" Chapter 446. Yi Chun felt warmth in his heart when he heard the concern and worry in their words. He then looked at Zhao Yu, Chan Wan, Mi Zhen, Kai Mei Huang Wan and Zhen Jiesa, who were all worried about him, and said with a smile, "It's okay. It's all right. It's been solved." Zhao Yu, Chan Wan, Mi Zhen, Kai Mei Huang Wan and Zhen Jiesa all breathed a sigh of relief when they heard this. They looked at each other and then said in unison, "My husband, the war at the front line is more important. I'll wait for your triumphant return at home." The women were ordered by Yi Chun to return to the game world, so they naturally did not disobey Yi Chun's order. However, it was inevitable that they were worried. Now that they saw Yi Chun come back safely and heard Yi Chun's words, they were naturally relieved. Yi Chun felt warmth in his heart again when he heard this. How could Yi Chun not understand their meaning? They wanted Yi Chun not to worry about them and go to the battlefield wholeheartedly. They did not want Yi Chun to be distracted because of them on the battlefield, which was a big taboo on the battlefield. Yi Chun knew this, and he also knew what the girls were thinking. They 100% hoped that Yi Chun could accompany them at home, but they also knew that it was not the time to be sentimental. Moreover, Yi Chun was the lord of Samsara City, the magistrate of Yuzhou province of the Great Han Empire, the general of agile cavalry, and the marquis champion. He had a lot of things to do. Although they hoped that Yi Chun could accompany them more, they did not want to delay Yi Chun's business because of this. This was not what a good wife should do. They only had one thing to do, which was to wait silently at home for Yi Chen's triumphant return. Therefore, they asked Yi Chen to go to the front line quickly. Looking at the girls, Yi Chen suddenly felt a little guilty. After coming back to his senses, Yi Chen let out a long sigh and said, "That's right. When this war is over, I will accompany you for a while." When the girls heard this, their eyes lit up and they shouted in unison, "Yes." When Yi Chen heard this, he smiled and said, "If that's the case, I'll take my leave first. Farewell, husband." Zhao Yu, Chan Wan, Mi Zhen, Kai Mei Huang Wan and Zhen Ju Sei shouted in unison. Yi Chen chuckled and nodded. Then he soared into the sky. He glanced at the shocked girls and flew towards Zhongshan County. Husband has become stronger again. All of the women looked in the direction that Yi Chen had left and said in unison. In the next second, all the girls smiled in unison, and then worship climbed onto their faces. Yi Chen was their husband. The stronger Yi Chen was, the happier they would be. This had nothing to do with showing off. It was just a wife's admiration for her husband. In the sky, Yi Chen had just flown into the reincarnation forest when the system's notification sounded. Ding! Player Yi Chen has advanced to the Purple Mansion realm. His strength has greatly exceeded the requirements to enter the Eldritch World. Do you want to enter the Eldritch World immediately? Ding! Player Yi Chen, if you refuse to enter the Eldritch World, the seal will continue to strengthen. F***CK. I haven't reaped enough benefits, and I haven't even established a country yet. How can I ascend thinking of this? Yi Chen pursed his lips and made his choice without hesitation. I'm not entering. Ding! Player Yi Chen refuses to enter the Eldritch World because his strength has greatly exceeded the strongest strength in the Three Kingdoms novice area. The seal will be applied until he enters the Eldritch World. When the system's notification ended, a beam of light appeared and enveloped Yi Chen. 3 seconds later, the beam of light disappeared. Yi Chen opened his eyes and sensed the situation of his body. The seal had indeed strengthened, but it was useless. His consciousness and physical body couldn't be sealed. Even in the sealed state, his strength was more than 100 times stronger than before. Thinking of this, Yi Chen pursed his lips in disdain and continued to fly towards Zhongshan County. Unexpectedly, Yi Chen hadn't even flown for 2 seconds when a world announcement suddenly rang out. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for obtaining the first kill of a small demon from the demon clan. Additional reward, Lottery X1. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for being the first to advance to the Golden Elixir realm. Special reward, Innate Attribute Points X100. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for being the first to advance to the Purple Mansion realm. Special reward, Innate Attribute Points X100. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for transitioning into a special profession, Immemorial Cultivator. Special reward, Innate Attribute Points X100. A series of world announcements rang out. Once it ended, the entire world channel exploded. F***CK. F***CK. This was 2 F***King abnormal. Advancing 2 realms in a row? Are you kidding me? Is there any justice in this world? Is there any law? Cheating. This is F***King cheating. I'm not convinced. Why? I'm not even at the Xiantian realm now. Yi Chen surpassed the Xiantian realm not long ago and advanced to the mortal evolution realm. Now, he advanced 2 realms in one go. This is completely illogical. That's right. You can't be so sick and get all the benefits. I'll tolerate it. You're lucky. But what's the situation now? I won't believe it even if you beat me to death. How can it be so easy to advance in realms? I just advanced to the Xiantian realm. F***CK. I'm already used to this sick Yi Chen. He can do whatever he wants with the world announcement. It has nothing to do with me. I just want to know one thing now. What is the Golden Elixir realm? What is the Purple Mansion realm? It's not important. The key is how Yi Chen did it. F***CK. If Yi Chen didn't cheat, I'll livestream myself eating sh**t. Yi Chen, since you know a special method to increase your strength, Why are you hiding it? Don't you know that in the real world, the devil race is becoming more and more sick? In a few more days, the Safety City's protective shield will lose its effect. Can you bear to see the human race being annihilated by the devil race? That's right. Yi-chun, you can't let the entire world leave you alone, right? If that's the case, you won't be lonely, won't you be lonely? Yi-chun, tell us the method to increase your strength quickly. As long as you tell us, we'll acknowledge you as the king of the human race. How about it? That's right. As long as Boss Yi-chun is willing to share the secret, Boss Yi-chun will be the king of the human race. Whoever dares to disobey, I'll be the first to annihilate them. You idiots, it's impossible for Boss Yi-chun to cheat. At this point in time, do you still think that it's possible to cheat in this world? Is there something wrong with your brains? Didn't you hear the first world announcement that Boss Yi-chun was the first to kill a devil race lesser devil? Why bother with these idiots? They're a bunch of brainless idiots. They don't know what's right or wrong and just claim that Boss Yi-chun cheated. They even want Boss Yi-chun to share the secret, ignoring the fact that Boss Yi-chun doesn't have any secrets. Even if he did, he wouldn't tell these idiots. Haha, Boss Yi-chun is the most awesome. However, I'm sure that the lesser devil race lesser devil that Boss Yi-chun killed was definitely a super boss. Otherwise, Boss Yi-chun wouldn't have directly increased his strength by 2 levels. Bullsh asterisk T. No matter how big the boss is, it's impossible to increase his strength by 2 levels after killing it. Yi-chun definitely cheated. Moreover, he definitely knows the secret of this world. The world channel was abuzz with activity. Yi-chun glanced at it and smiled coldly. Many players still believe that Yi-chun had a secret and knew about the game world's bug. They wanted Yi-chun to share the secret, and they used the future of the human race and the survival of the human race to convince Yi-chun. They made it sound like Yi-chun was a sinner of the human race if he didn't share the secret. Yi-chun had seen this many times. His heart was as hard as steel, and he wouldn't be swayed. The players didn't give up and wanted to take a shortcut. Little did they know that there were no shortcuts in this world. Yi-chun's achievements were all due to Yi-chun's own hard work. If it wasn't for the previous accumulation, Yi-chun wouldn't have been able to kill the lesser devil black dog and increase his strength by 2 levels. The future of the human race was in the hands of these people. They weren't far from extinction. Thinking of this, Yi-chun curled his lips in disdain. He then sped up towards Zhongshan County. Zhongshan County, outside the city. Banners fluttered in the wind, and spears formed a forest. Gui, Guan-er, Zhong-san, Zhong-he, Tian-feng, Chu-yi, and Gao-lan stood in front of the million-strong army, quietly waiting for Yi-chun's return. In the sky, Yi-chun glanced at the Samsara City army that was ready to attack. He smiled and then flew towards the ground. When Yi-chun landed, a swoosh sound was heard. Guan-er, Zhong-san, Zhong-he, Chu-yi, and Gao-lan all knelt on one knee and shouted, "Greetings, my lord." Chapter 447. Greetings, my lord. Gui and Tian-feng followed suit and bowed. Swoosh! The 1,010,000 soldiers of Samsara City knelt down on one knee in unison. Greetings, my lord. The 1,010,000 soldiers of Samsara City shouted in unison. Their voices shook the sky. Compared to the past, the army of Samsara City was clearly more imposing. Furthermore, the soldiers' eyes were filled with intense worship and faith. The reason was simple. Their lord, the general of agile cavalry of the great Han Empire, Yi-chun, could fly. This was not a skill of the mortal world. For the soldiers of Samsara City, they were proud and excited to be able to follow a lord like Yi-chun. All of this turned into worship and faith for Yi-chun. Yi-chun looked at the imposing and admiring soldiers of Samsara City and nodded with satisfaction. Then he looked at his subordinates and shouted, "Guan-er, Zhong-san, Zhong-he, Chu-yi, Gao-lan, you'll be the vanguard. Tian-feng will be the military advisor. Let's go to Mount Chong." "Yes, my lord." Guan-er, Zhong-san, Zhong-he, Chu-yi, Gao-lan, and Tian-feng's eyes lit up. They hurriedly bowed and said loudly. Yichen looked at them and nodded with satisfaction. Then he shouted, "Let's go." "Yes, my lord." Guan Er, Zhang San, Zhang He, Chu Yi, Gao Lan, and Tian Feng bowed again. Then they walked toward their respective armies. After 10 minutes, Guan Er, Zhang San, Zhang He, Chu Yi, Gao Lan, and Tian Feng led the 500,000 soldiers of Samsara City and rushed toward Mount Chang. Rumble. Thousands of horses galloped, and the earth rumbled. The 500,000 soldiers of Samsara City galloped forward, stirring up a cloud of dust in an instant. Yichen looked at Guan Er, Zhang San, and the others who had left and smiled. Then he looked at the remaining 500,000 soldiers of Samsara City and shouted, "Are you willing to join the Samsara Legion?" The 500,000 soldiers of Samsara City were stunned when they heard this. They never thought that Yichen would ask them such a question. The Samsara Legion was the trump card of Samsara City. How could they not know about it? Not only did they know what the Samsara Legion was, but they also knew that every soldier in Samsara City wanted to join the Samsara Legion because the Samsara Legion was not only the trump card, but also Yichen's personal guard. And now, their lord, Yichen, was asking them if they were willing to join the Samsara Legion. To them, this was like a sudden blessing. So how could they not be stunned? In the next second, the 500,000 soldiers of Samsara City knelt down on one knee and shouted, "We are willing." Upon hearing this, Yichen smiled and waved his right hand. In the next second, a ball of golden light appeared out of nowhere and enveloped the 500,000 soldiers of Samsara City. At the same time, an iron-blooded, resolute, and unyielding aura rose from the 500,000 soldiers of Samsara City. It became stronger and stronger. The special attributes of the Samsara Legion were added to the 500,000 soldiers of Samsara City. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. 1 minute later, a strong and domineering aura rose from the 500,000 soldiers of Samsara City. At this moment, the system notification sounded. Ding! Congratulations to player Yichen. The number of Samsara Legion members has increased by 500,000. The total number of members has reached 510,000. Samsara Legion, one and only Special Forces grade. SSS number of soldiers, 510,000. Limit, 10,000,000 Legion battle formations, White Tiger battle formation, Innate battle formation, Vermilion Bird battle formation, Innate battle formation, Legion skills, Swift as the wind, slow as the forest, aggressive as fire, immovable as the mountain, unpredictable as the dark, moving as thunder. Yichen raised his eyebrows as he glanced at the attribute panel of the Samsara Legion. In the past, 10,000 soldiers of the Samsara Legion were enough to strike fear into the hearts of their enemies. Now that the Samsara Legion had reached 510,000, their numbers would increase in the future. If the players saw the brand new Samsara Legion, they probably wouldn't even have the courage to fight back. Thinking of this, Yichen couldn't help but smirk. At this moment, the 500,000 soldiers who had just joined the Samsara Legion shouted in unison, "We swear to follow the Lord until death. If we violate this oath, may the heavens and earth destroy us." The sonorous and forceful oath caused the sky to buzz. Yichen glanced at the soldiers who had just joined the Samsara Legion and nodded in satisfaction. He then looked at the 10,000 soldiers of the Samsara Legion who had followed him first and shouted, "From today onwards, all of you will be promoted by 1 level." As soon as Yichen finished speaking, the eyes of the veterans of the Samsara Legion lit up. They then bowed in unison and said loudly, "Yes, my lord." How could they not understand what Yichen meant? They were all going to be officials, and even the worst of them would be a corporal. This was naturally something that they couldn't be happier about. This was because Yichen didn't neglect them because of the new recruits. Also, they were going to be officials. This was a great thing that would bring glory to their ancestors. How could they not be happy? Even if it was just a corporal, it was still an official. If word got out, they would definitely be envied. After all, the Samsara Legion was the trump card of Samsara City. The value of the soldiers in it was far higher than that of other legions. let alone those who hadn't joined the Legion yet. It was also because of this that the veterans of the Samsara Legion were all overjoyed. Yichin glanced at the excited veterans of the Samsara Legion, smiled, and then shouted, "Let's go." He then shouted, "I'll give you half an hour to choose your subordinates." "Yes, my lord." When the veterans of the Samsara Legion heard this, they bowed in unison and saluted loudly. In the next second, the veterans of the Samsara Legion went to the formation of the 500,000 Samsara Legion recruits to choose their subordinates. Soon, the selection was over and they lined up again. Seeing this, Yichin nodded with satisfaction. Yichan said that he would wait for half an incense sticks time. Actually, he wanted to see if the veterans of the Samsara Legion would fight over the soldiers. After all, out of the 500,000 Samsara Legion recruits, there were some with grade A aptitude, some with grade S aptitude. In the end, Yichin was very satisfied. There was no competition at all. The selection process was extremely fast. In less than 10 minutes, the selection process was over. Yichin naturally wanted to see his subordinates get along well with each other. Yichin didn't want his subordinates to fight with each other. Thinking of this, Yichin looked at Gua Yi, who was smiling beside him, and said, "Feng Xiao, get ready to set off." "Yes, my lord." Gua Yi hurriedly bowed and saluted when he heard this. Yichin nodded, then looked at the 510,000 Samsara Legion soldiers and shouted, "Get on the horses." "Yes, my lord." The soldiers shouted in unison. In the next second, the 500,000 recruits of Samsara City mounted their horses in unison. At the same time, a series of bang-bang sounds of heavy objects falling to the ground were heard. The veterans of the Samsara Legion had summoned their mounts, the wild rhinoceroses. When the veterans of the Samsara Legion mounted their rhinoceroses in unison, a thunderous neigh was heard. "Neigh, neigh, neigh, little gold," the Pegasus came to Yi Chen's side in an instant with a flash of golden light. It then rubbed its head affectionately against Yi Chen. Yi Chen smiled and patted the Pegasus Xiao Jin's head. Then, he mounted the Pegasus and shouted, "Let's go." Chapter 448. "Yes, my lord." The Samsara Legion shouted in unison. Then, they followed Yi Chun and galloped toward Mount Chong. Rumble. Tens of thousands of horses galloped, and the earth rumbled. The dust that had just fallen to the ground splashed up again and was blown away by the wind. Yi Chun left with the Samsara Legion. The players who were following Yi Chun in the distance to reap the benefits hurriedly chased after them. Outside Changshan County, deafening battle cries, the clashing of weapons, angry shouts, and miserable cries intertwined and resounded throughout the wilderness. At this moment, millions of golden-turbaned soldiers were attacking the city walls in a frenzy. Even though there were mountains of corpses and rivers of blood below the city walls, it didn't affect the morale of the golden-turbaned soldiers. Their faces were filled with madness as they attacked with all their might. They could reach the city walls at any time. Changshan County was in imminent danger. At this moment, an earth-shattering roar was heard. Rumble, rumble. It was the sound of a large group of cavalry galloping. The general who was guarding the city was stunned when he heard the sound. Then, he hurriedly looked toward the northeast. In the next second, the general of Changshan County couldn't help but squint his eyes. In the northeast, patches of diamond-like radiance were constantly shining. It was so dazzling that one couldn't look straight at it. A cavalry army equipped with diamond-grade equipment sets. The general of Changshan County instantly recognized the equipment of the cavalry army that had arrived on the battlefield. It was precisely because he recognized the diamond-grade equipment that the general of Changshan County was so shocked. The Great Han Empire didn't have an army equipped with diamond-grade equipment sets. Not to mention diamond-grade equipment sets, even silver-grade equipment sets were rare. However, this cavalry army that had suddenly arrived on the battlefield was fully equipped with diamond-grade equipment. Moreover, their aura was imposing and their fighting spirit was shocking. Where did these cavalry army come from? They were all equipped with diamond-grade equipment. The general of Changshan County stared blankly at the 500,000 cavalrymen that had suddenly appeared on the battlefield. He was extremely shocked. Not only was the general of Changshan County stunned, but the soldiers on the city walls were also stunned. It was hard for them not to be stunned. 500,000 diamond-grade equipment sets were shining in the sunlight. They had never seen such a cool and domineering scene before. General, reinforcements. It's reinforcements. A soldier of Changshan County recovered from his shock. His originally blank eyes were immediately filled with hope, and he shouted in ecstasy. Good job, good job, good job. Great. It was reinforcements. It was really reinforcements. We won't have to die. A soldier from Changshan County shouted excitedly after shooting an arrow. The soldiers of Changshan Prefecture cheered and shouted excitedly. They didn't know who the cavalry belonged to, but that wasn't important. What was important was that this cavalry wasn't the Golden Scarf Bandits, because no one was wearing a golden scarf. The general glanced at the soldiers whose morale had skyrocketed and shouted, "Attack with all your might. We must not let the Golden Scarf thieves attack the city walls." Yes, General. When the soldiers of Changshan Commandery heard this, they shouted in unison without hesitation. After that, they attacked the Golden Scarf soldiers who were trying to climb up the city wall with all their might. Compared to before, the soldiers of Changshan County were more than 10 times more motivated. They were still worried and afraid because the Golden Scarf Army could attack the city walls at any time. Once the Golden Scarf Army reached the city walls, Changshan County wouldn't be far from being breached. At that time, they would be torn apart by the Golden Scarf Army. They didn't want to die, so they resisted with all their might. However, they knew that they couldn't hold on for long. Just as they were about to lose all hope, a tyrannical cavalry army arrived on the battlefield. For them, this was tantamount to a cardiac stimulant. The fear and despair in their hearts were instantly dispelled. As soldiers of the Great Han Empire, how could they not know what cavalry was? A cavalry army of 10,000 people could completely destroy an infantry army of 100,000 people. Not only did the cavalry reinforcements from the Great Han Empire reach 500,000 men, but their equipment was also abnormally luxurious. All of them were equipped with diamond equipment sets. It was also because of this that the soldiers of Changshan County saw the hope of survival. Then, their originally low morale suddenly exploded. At the commander's flag of the Golden Scarf Army. Damn it! Whose army is that? Why are there so many cavalry? And all of them are wearing diamond-grade equipment sets. The Golden Scarf General looked at the approaching cavalry army and roared with an ashen face. General, I don't know. However, General, should we retreat temporarily? Otherwise, I'm afraid that we will suffer heavy losses. When the Golden Scarf Deputy General heard this, he hurriedly cupped his fist and bowed. When the Golden Scarf General heard the Deputy General's suggestion of retreat, his face instantly became ferocious. He then roared fiercely, "Retreat? How? How? They are cavalry. We are all infantry. Only a few of us have horses. How can we outrun them? General, where there is life, there is hope. If we don't make a decision, once the cavalry charges, then..." When the Golden Scarf Deputy General heard this, his face instantly turned pale, and he bowed. The Golden Scarf General was silent for a moment, then fiercely roared, "Pass down the order. Give up the siege. Everyone drink talisman water and destroy this damned cavalry." Yes, General. The Golden Scarf Deputy General's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he hurriedly bowed in response. After that, he galloped away on his horse to pass down the order. Not long after, the Golden Scarf soldiers who had besieged the city retreated one after another and returned to the Golden Scarf Army's camp. In the next second, a series of loud shouts rang out from the Golden Scarf Army's camp. "The heavens are dead, and the yellow heavens shall rise. In 60 years, the world shall prosper." The shouts grew louder and louder. This was a method that the Golden Scarf General often used to raise morale, and the effect was extremely obvious. It was not difficult to see this from the crazed faces of the Golden Scarf soldiers who had shouted the slogan. A few seconds later, several shouts rang out. "General's orders. Drink talisman water. Virtuous teacher is here with us." When the golden scarf soldiers heard this, a fanatical look appeared in their eyes. They then took out bamboo tubes from their arms, pulled out the corks, and drank without hesitation. Bursts of red light appeared on the golden scarf soldiers. When the golden scarf general saw this, he took a deep breath and exhaled. "For the sake of virtuous teacher, kill these lackeys of the imperial court." After the golden scarf general roared, he pointed his weapon at the cavalry that was about to arrive on the battlefield. "Kill! Kill! Kill!" Chaotic battle cries rang out in an instant. In the next second, the golden scarf army charged toward the cavalry. Rumble, rumble. Thousands of horses galloped, and the earth rumbled. In the midst of the Samsara City army that was about to arrive on the battlefield, military counselor Tian Feng clapped his right hand in the air and shouted, "Flying sand and stones." In the next second, a gust of wind rose up, and then the sand and stones all over the sky rushed toward the golden scarf army. When Guanair, Zhang San, Zhang Ju, Chu Yi, and Gao Lan saw this, they all smiled and then shouted, "Charge! Kill! Kill! Kill!" The 500,000 cavalrymen of Samsara City raised their spears and shouted in unison. An extremely strong killing intent rose up in an instant. Chapter 449. In the next second, the 500,000 cavalrymen followed Guanair, Zhang San, Zhang He, Chu Yi, and Gao Lan and charged forward. Rumble. 10,000 horses galloped, and the earth shook. A wild, overbearing, and unstoppable aura rose and rushed toward the golden scarf army with a strong killing intent. Woo, woo, woo. Tian Feng's flying sand and rolling stone skill started to show its power. A gust of wind blew sand and stones into the golden scarf army. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of sand and stones hitting bodies was heard. The soldiers of the golden scarf army were hit by the wind, and their vision was blurred. However, they had no intention of dodging. They still held their weapons and charged toward the Reincarnation City cavalrymen. Because they had drunk the talisman water, they had lost the ability to think like normal people. If they were normal people, they would definitely defend themselves or even run away. However, the millions of soldiers of the Golden Scarf Army were obviously not normal. They only had one thought in their minds. For the virtuous teacher, kill the cavalrymen in front of us. Rumble. 10,000 horses galloped and the earth shook. Guanair, Zhang San, Zhang He, Chu Yi, and Gao Lan rushed to the front of the Golden Scarf Army and swung their weapons with Xiantian Tru Chi. Woo woo woo. The sound of 5 air blades cutting through the air was heard. In the next second, the sound of bodies being cut into pieces was heard. Poochie, poochie, poochie. Hundreds of Golden Scarf Army soldiers were cut in half by Guanair, Zhang San, Zhang He, Chu Yi, and Gao Lan. Blood and internal organs splattered on the ground. Kill. Guanair, Zhang San, Zhang He, Gao Lan, and Chu Yi all opened their eyes and shouted at the same time. After the 5 of them finished shouting, they did not stop. They continued to charge forward and instantly cut a hole in the Golden Scarf Army. They were all famous historical generals. Guanair and Zhang San were even more famous. No one in the Golden Scarf Army could stop their attack. Rumble. The 500,000 cavalrymen of Reincarnation City caught up and stabbed their spears mercilessly. Poochie, poochie, poochie. The soldiers of the Golden Scarf Army were stabbed to death and then sent flying by the galloping horses. The 500,000 cavalrymen of Samsara City did not stop and continued to charge forward. The crazy Golden Scarf soldiers were constantly stabbed to death, knocked flying, and then trampled by the war horses, turning into a pile of mud. The commander flag of the Golden Scarf Army. The Golden Scarf Deputy General glanced at the Golden Scarf Army that was being sent flying and shuddered. He then hurriedly looked at the Golden Scarf General and said, "General, if we don't leave now, it will be too late." When the Golden Scarf General heard this, his originally sinister face instantly twisted. He had thought that his millions of Golden Scarf Army would not be able to stop the cavalry of Samsara City, but he had never thought that they would fail to stop the cavalry of Samsara City. The millions of golden turban army that had drunk the talisman water were like clay chickens and pottery dogs in front of the 500,000 cavalrymen of Samsara City. They could not withstand a single blow. He had not expected this result. To be more precise, this was not the result he wanted to see at all. The Golden Scarf General let out a long breath and tried his best to calm his anger and fear. Then he looked at the Golden Scarf Deputy General and shouted sternly, "Retreat!" When the Golden Scarf Deputy General heard this, he hurriedly looked at the personal guards and shouted, "Retreat!" In the next second, the Golden Scarf General galloped away from the battlefield without any hesitation. Behind him was the Golden Scarf Deputy General and hundreds of personal guards. Rumble, rumble. Thousands of horses galloped, and the earth rumbled. The charging cavalry of Samsara City became faster and faster and more ferocious. Groups of Golden Scarf soldiers were stabbed to death, slashed to death, and knocked away. Soon, the Golden Scarf army was cut in half. Wherever the cavalry of Samsara City passed, corpses were everywhere and blood flowed like a river. Just as Guan Er, Zhang San, Zhang He, Chu Yi, and Gao Lan led their troops to cut the Golden Scarf army in half, the five of them all looked at the Golden Scarf General and his men who were desperately fleeing the battlefield. In the next second, Guan Er, Zhang San, Zhang He, Chu Yi, and Gao Lan pointed their weapons at the Golden Scarf General and his men. Then they shouted, "Mounted archery!" When the cavalry of Samsara City, who were galloping away, heard this, they put down their spears without hesitation. Then they picked up their bows and arrows, pulled them hard, and shot them. Bang, bang, bang. 500,000 arrows left the bowstrings in an instant. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sound of the arrows piercing through the air was instantly heard. In the next second, 500,000 arrows shot into the air and shot toward the Golden Scarf General and his men who were fleeing. Da-da-da-da. When the Golden Scarf General heard the dense sound of the arrows piercing through the air, his face turned pale. He hurriedly turned his head to look. In the next second, the Golden Scarf General's eyes widened. Then he shouted at his personal guards, "Come over here. Hurry up and block the arrows for me." He knew that diamond-level equipment was very powerful, and he also knew that the cavalry of Samsara City wore diamond-level suits. However, he thought that the diamond-level suits of the cavalry of Samsara City were armor, spears, and horse armor. However, the cruel reality told him one thing. The cavalry of Samsara City actually had diamond-level bows and arrows. Moreover, the range of the arrows was too far. He did not want to die. He wanted to live. Otherwise, he would not have sacrificed millions of Golden Scarf soldiers in exchange for a chance to escape. Therefore, he wanted his personal guards to protect him and block the arrows for him. As long as he was not shot to death, he still had a chance to escape. When the Golden Scarf General's personal guards heard this, their already pale faces turned even paler. They also saw the arrows that blotted out the sky and covered the sun. In that instant, they felt the arrival of death. However, they knew that they were the personal guards, and their duty was to protect the Golden Scarf General. Who would have thought that the Golden Scarf General would order them to block the arrows just as they were about to move? How could they feel good about it? "Come over here." The Golden Scarf General looked at the 500,000 arrows that were about to fall from the sky and screamed at his personal guards. Just like the Golden Scarf General, he was equally terrified. He did not want to die either. He also wanted to use the bodies of his personal guards as shields to block the arrows that covered the sky. The personal guards looked at each other and gritted their teeth as they rushed forward. The Golden Scarf General and his deputy were overjoyed when they saw this. They hurriedly dismounted from their horses and rushed toward the personal guards. In the next second, dozens of poochie sounds were heard. The personal guards of the Golden Scarf General raised their spears without hesitation and pierced the Golden Scarf General and his deputy. The Golden Scarf General lowered his head and looked at the dozens of spears that pierced through his body. Then he looked at his personal guards and shouted in disbelief. At this moment, 500,000 arrows descended. Chapter 450. Poochie, Poochie, Poochie. The sound of arrows piercing into flesh was heard in an instant. The golden turban general, deputy general, and hundreds of guards were shot into hedgehogs. Bang, bang, bang. A series of falling sounds were heard. The golden scarf general, the golden scarf deputy general, and hundreds of their personal guards were instantly killed. Rumble. Thousands of horses galloped, and the earth rumbled. Guan Er, Zhang San, Zhang He, Chu Yi, and Gao Lan, who were leading the cavalry of Samsara City, glanced at the dead golden scarf general and his deputy. They sneered coldly and shouted, "Turn around and continue to charge." The 500,000 cavalrymen of Samsara City put down their bows and arrows when they heard this. Then they picked up their spears and shouted, "Kill! Kill! Kill!" In the next second, the cavalry of Samsara City followed closely behind Guan Er, Zhang San, Zhang He, Chu Yi, and Gao Lan. They turned their horses around and started to charge again. Outside the battlefield, Tian Feng, who had been observing the battle, suddenly clapped his right hand. Buzz! The wind suddenly stopped, and the sand and stones fell to the ground. At this moment, Guan Er, Zhang San, Zhang He, Chu Yi, and Gao Lan led the 500,000 cavalrymen of Samsara City into contact with the Golden Turban Army again. They started to kill them mercilessly. At the same time, shouts of killing, the sound of horses colliding with each other, miserable howls, angry roars, and the sound of weapons piercing through bodies were heard in waves. The soldiers of the Golden Turban Army were stabbed to death, sent flying, and trampled. The bloody road of flesh and blood mixed with mud appeared on the ground again. After 10 minutes, the cavalry of Samsara City once again pierced through the Golden Turban Army. They returned and continued to charge. The soldiers of the Golden Turban Army were killed again and again. They could not cause any damage to the cavalry of Samsara City. Time passed by slowly. When the dull rumbling of the earth came from afar, the killing was coming to an end. Rumble. The dull rumbling of the earth was getting closer and louder. This was the sound of countless war horses galloping. It was clear that another cavalry army was rushing over. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, a man in a luxurious robe, riding a golden Pegasus, suddenly appeared outside the battlefield. He was about 20 years old and had a handsome appearance. His long hair fluttered in the wind. When he reached the edge of the battlefield, he stopped. At this moment, a cavalry army of 500,000 or more appeared outside the battlefield. They came to a stop behind the young man. On the walls of Changshan County, the defending general was stunned when he saw the cavalry army that suddenly appeared in the northeast of the battlefield. Then he thought of something and shouted in surprise, It's actually General of Agile Cavalry, Yi Chun, governor of Yuzhou Province." The general of Changshan Prefecture naturally knew that the reinforcements were from the Great Han Empire. Furthermore, they belonged to a general of the Great Han Empire. Otherwise, the equipment of these cavalrymen would not be so uniform, and they would not march in unison after joining the battle. In his view, a general of the Great Han Empire who could command such a large number of soldiers and such luxurious equipment was definitely not simple. Initially, he was still guessing whose army it was. But now, he had an answer as soon as the 500,000 strong cavalrymen appeared. A general who could command such a large army was definitely at the level of a great general. The Great Han Empire only had two great generals at this moment. One was Great General He Jin, and the other was General of Agile Cavalry, Yi Chun. Putting aside the fact that He Jin did not have so many soldiers, even if he did, Great Han Emperor Lu Hong would not let him lead an army of 1 million to quell the rebellion. This was because Luoyang was of the utmost importance. Only when Luoyang was stabilized would Lu Hong consider letting He Jin lead an army to quell the rebellion. Thus, the answer was very clear. This person was the Great Han Empire's Agile Cavalry Great General, Yi Chun. When he thought of this, the eyes of the general guarding Changshan County brightened. He then looked at his deputy general and said, "The Battle of Changshan County has been settled. The war in Changshan County has been settled." The Golden Scarf Bandits have been eliminated. I have promised the commandery governor that I will live and die with Changshan County. Now I have fulfilled my promise. Please tell the commandery governor that Lu Jin has met a wise master and will take my leave." When the deputy general of Changshan County heard this, he was stunned. When he came to his senses, a look of ecstasy flashed across his face. He then hastily turned to Lu Jin and solemnly bowed. "Yes, General. This general will definitely inform the Lord County Governor of this matter." When Lu Jin heard this, he glanced at the solemn deputy general and disdainfully curled his lips. Then he walked down the wall. Lu Jin could naturally tell what this deputy general was thinking. It was nothing more than a replacement, a promotion from deputy to general. Only with Lu Jin's departure would he have a chance. Thus, he did not try to persuade Lu Jin to stay and did his best to conceal his ecstasy. However, Lu Jin didn't care about this at all. This was because he had encountered the Great Han Empire's unparalleled cavalry general, Yi Chun, who had made illustrious achievements in battle and commanded troops like a god. Even being a small soldier under Great General of Light Cavalry Yi Chun was better than being in Changshan County. More importantly, Lu Jin had long heard that the Great Han Empire's Great General of Light Cavalry, Yi Chun, recruited talents not based on their background, but only on their ability. And this was undoubtedly what Lu Jin wanted to see the most. In fact, any general would want to follow a powerful lord with a good reputation, especially a lord who only looked at ability and not background. Such a lord was extraordinarily attractive to all upright generals, especially those who came from humble backgrounds. As for Lu Jin, even though he came from humble background, he had heard of Yi Chen's various deeds and even heard of Yi Chen's various titles and reputations. Therefore, after Lu Jin confirmed that the person leading the troops on the battlefield was the Great Han Empire's Great General of Light Cavalry, Yi Chun, he made his choice without hesitation. He wanted to seek refuge under Yi Chun, even if he had to be a small soldier. He firmly believed that he could rely on his own ability to continuously rise in rank and eventually become a great general who would bring glory to his ancestors. At the edge of the battlefield, Yi Chun glanced at the Golden Scarf army that was about to be annihilated. He raised his eyebrows and waved his hand. In the next second, a major of the Samsara Legion hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. "My lord, go and tell the governor of Changshan County that the soldiers defending the city of Zhongshan County have been completely annihilated. Tell him to send troops over as soon as possible. Also, tell him that this is an order. If anyone dares to disobey, kill them without mercy." Yi Chun glanced at Changshan County and ordered. When the major of the Samsara Legion heard this, he nodded heavily and bowed. "Yes, my lord," he said in a low voice. After saying this, he rode his wild rhinoceros and charged towards Changshan County. At this moment, the city gates of Changshan County suddenly opened. A man wearing plain clothes and riding a warhorse rushed out of the city gates and rushed towards Yi Chun. Chapter 451. Yi Chun was observing the battlefield. When the gates of Changshan County opened, Yi Chun saw it immediately. When Yi Chun saw the man rushing over, he couldn't help but be stunned. The battle had yet to end, but the gates of Changshan County had opened. Logically speaking, it should have been the garrison troops of Changshan County that came out. However, when the gates of Changshan County opened, only one person came out. Furthermore, it was a man dressed in plain clothes. Then the gates closed. "This guy is here to look for me." At this thought, Yi Chun couldn't help but look at the man who was dressed in plain clothes and riding on a warhorse. He had a short appearance. Although he was dressed in plain clothes, he couldn't hide his powerful aura. One look and Lin Huang could tell that he was a general. Could he be here to seek refuge with me? At this thought, Yi Chun couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. To Yi Chun, the more generals he had, the better. Yi Chun didn't mind having more generals. There was no doubt about this. The warhorse galloped forward, and the man dressed in plain clothes quickly arrived within 100 meters of Yi Chun. At this moment, there was a swoosh sound. 510,000 members of the Samsara Legion raised their bows in unison and aimed at the man dressed in plain clothes. The man dressed in plain clothes, who was about to continue forward, hurriedly pulled on the reins. The warhorse beneath him instantly reared up and let out a loud neigh. Harumph! The man dressed in plain clothes had come from Changshan County. However, his identity and intentions were unknown. As Yi Chen's personal army, the Samsara Legion naturally wouldn't allow such an existence to approach Yi Chen. When Yi Chen saw this, he smiled faintly and raised his right hand, indicating for the Samsara Legion to lower their bows. With a swoosh sound, the raised bows were instantly lowered. However, the 10,000 veterans of the Samsara Legion gripped their spears tightly in unison and raised them diagonally, mercilessly locking onto the man dressed in plain clothes. As soon as the man in linen clothes made a move, the 10,000 veterans of the Samsara Legion would immediately give him a thunderous blow. 100 meters away, the linen-clothed man noticed Yi Chen's recklessness. After the warhorse landed, he calmed it down and dismounted, walking towards Yi Chen alone. When he was 10 meters away from Yi Chen, the man stopped and bowed to Yi Chen, saying, "Brother Yi, I'm sorry." Yang Ping, Eugene, and Yu Wenxian pay their respects to the general of agile cavalry. When Yi Chen heard this, his eyes widened. F***CK. It was actually Lu Jin. Yi Chen had guessed that this man was a general, but Yi Chen had never thought that this man would actually be Lu Jin. How could Yi Chen not know who Eugene was? Eugene was a famous historical general. Along with Zhang He, Zhang Liao, Eugene, and Su Huang, they were known as the 5 great generals of Cao Wei. To put it simply, Eugene was originally going to follow Cao Cao. Who would have thought that for some reason, he would appear here and even take the initiative to meet Yi Chen? It was clear that Eugene still didn't have a lord. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done this. When he thought of this, Yi Chen suddenly felt very good. Fuck, I've already intercepted 2 of Cao Cao's 5 great generals. Zhang Liao and Zhang He are already loyal to me. And now, this Eugene has appeared. No matter what, I can't let Eugene run away. When he thought of this, Yi Chen suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. He dismounted from his horse and walked a few steps towards Eugene, quickly arriving in front of him. Yi Chen glanced at Lu Jin, helped him up with a smile, and then said, "Don't worry." He then said, "Wenxian, I can tell at a glance that you are extraordinarily brave. May I know what business you have with me?" When Eugene saw Yi Chen's easygoing appearance and heard the strong appreciation in Yi Chen's words, he immediately became very excited. This was because the current Yi Chen was completely in line with the legendary general of the Great Han Empire, Yi Chen's army. To be more precise, compared to the rumors, Eugene felt more at ease. At this moment, Eugene was even more certain of his previous decision. When he thought of this, Eugene tried hard to calm his excited mood. He glanced at Yi Chen, the war god of the Great Han Empire, and then solemnly bowed and said, "Yang Ping, Eugene, and Yu Wenxian are willing to follow my lord. I implore my lord to take them in." When Eugene finished speaking, a system notification sounded out. Ding! First-rate historical generals Eugene and Yu Wenxian wish to acknowledge you as their master. Do you accept? When he heard the system notification, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Fuck, how could he refuse? Accept. Ding. Congratulations to player Yi Chen for obtaining the loyalty of first-rate historical generals Eugene and Yu Wenxian. When he heard this, Yi Chen hurriedly helped Eugene up and then solemnly said, "To be able to have Yu Wenxian follow me is a great fortune. Eugene and Yu Wenxian greet my lord." When Eugene heard this, he was immediately overjoyed. He hurriedly bowed and solemnly said. When Yi Chen heard this, he chuckled and nodded. Just as he was about to speak, a world notification sounded out. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for obtaining the loyalty of first-rate historical generals Eugene and Yu Wenxian. Special reward to player Yi Chen, 10 million gold taels. The world notification sounded out 3 times in a row, instantly causing the world channel to explode. Fuck Eugene. The Eugene of the 5 elite generals. Fuck, is there a mistake? Isn't he Chao's subordinate? How could he be subdued by Yi Chun? I'm going to flip the table. Fuck, there are only so many first-rate historical generals. Is he going to give others a way out? Yeah, that's right. It's easy to obtain an army of 1,000, but hard to find a good general. Fuck, if you don't have a good general, you'll only be abused on the battlefield. Yi Chun, on the other hand, has taken in 10 first-rate historical generals. This is too much. What I'm most angry about is that these first-rate historical generals all had masters in history. How could they be so easily taken away by that bastard Yi Chun? Fuck, you only said first-rate. Did you forget about the first-rate ones? Zhao Yun, Guan Er, Zhang San, Dian Xiong, Gui Yi, Sun Qing. Fuck, these are all first-rate ones. There are 4 generals and 2 civil officials. Fuck. Cheating. This is King cheating. If this isn't cheating, how could he have taken in so many historical generals and civil officials? I strongly demand that Yi Chun be punished. Ah, bunch of fools. Go ahead and be envious. It's useless. Boss Yi Chun is the most awesome. That's right. Boss Yi Chun is the most awesome existence. He has subdued all the historical generals and civil officials. All right, there are also historical beauties. He didn't leave a single one for those idiotic overlords. That's right. He can't leave a single one for them. He hasn't even subdued the historical generals and civil officials, yet he's already bullying us casual players. If he subdued them, who knows how he'll bully us? The World Channel was abuzz. Yi Chun glanced at it and couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. The envy and jealousy of the players was still the same as before. However, to Yi Chun, these players were just a bunch of mobs. In the past, Yi Chun didn't think much of them. Now, Yi Chun didn't think much of them. Even if Yi Chun didn't take in any historical generals and civil officials, Yi Chun alone could wipe out all the players and all the territories. It wouldn't be a problem for him to wipe out the entire 3 Kingdoms novice region. Yi Chun had already reached the Purple Mansion realm. His realm was far beyond the Xiantian realm. Compared to other players, Yi Chun was like the sky. There was no need for him to care about them. Of course, Yi Chun wouldn't be so crazy as to destroy the 3 Kingdoms beginners regions. Yi Chun still wanted to establish his own country, to reap the benefits, and even more importantly, to ascend. And now, what Yi Chun lacked was an opportunity, a legitimate opportunity. Chapter 452. At this moment, the Han dynasty was still in existence, and Lu Hong was still alive. It was not a good time to fight for the world. If Yi Chun started to fight for the world right now, he would definitely be labeled as a traitor. Then everyone would want to beat him up and kill him. After that, Yi Chun would definitely be deprived of his official position and military power. Everyone in the Han dynasty would remember Yi Chun's evil. Historical generals, historical civil officials, and historical beauties would no longer regard Yi Chun as the best candidate for their lord. In terms of force, these were actually nothing. After all, Yi Chun was so powerful that even if he had to fight against the whole world, Yi Chun could easily handle everything. However, this was seriously inconsistent with Yi Chun's original intention. Yi Chun originally planned to build a country and recruit historical generals, historical civil officials, and historical beauties. Then he would lead the country to the untainted land. If Yi Chun really took action in advance, Yi Chun's plan would be completely disrupted. At that time, he would not be able to recruit historical generals, historical civil officials, and historical beauties. Even if he built a country, he would lose a large number of people. Moreover, the most serious thing was that the fate of heaven and earth would be severely reduced. This was not what Yi Chun wanted to see. Therefore, Yi Chun could not take action in advance. Even if he did, he would only do it after Lu Hong died and Dong Da's chaos started. There was no hurry. Time was almost up. Once the time came, he would directly conquer the world. Thinking of this, Yi Chun suddenly smiled. Then he looked at Lu Jin and shouted, "From now on, Wen Xian will be the 11th general of the Samsara city and will lead 100,000 soldiers. Hearing this, Lu Jin's eyes went blank. Lu Jin knew that Yi Chen valued him when he first met Yi Chen. Originally, Lu Jin thought that Yi Chen would let him be a surplus general. But in the end, that was not the case at all. Yi Chen did not give him the position of a surplus general at all. Instead, he gave him the position of commander of an army and even commanded an army of 100,000 soldiers. How could Lu Jin not know what kind of existence the soldiers of Samsara City were and whether they were powerful or not? Even if he wasn't clear about it in the past, it was clear now. All of them were equipped with diamond-level armor sets, and each of them had a warhorse. All of them were brave and extraordinary. These were the soldiers of Samsara City. There was no doubt that the soldiers of Samsara City were the best of the best. But now, Yi Chen had directly appointed him as the commander of the 100,000 soldiers of Samsara City. This was completely beyond his expectations. It was precisely because of this that Lu Jin was stunned on the spot. After regaining his senses, Lu Jin's eyes suddenly widened. Then with a bang sound, he knelt down on one knee and bowed loudly. Lu Jin, Lu Wenxian, swear to follow my lord to death. If I violate this oath, may I be destroyed by the heavens and the earth. Yi Chen's appointment was no longer as simple as just being valued. It was recognition, complete recognition. Otherwise, he would not have directly given him the position of commander-in-chief. And for Lu Jin, this was undoubtedly what he wanted to see the most. It was precisely because of this that Lu Jin was so moved. Then, without hesitation, he swore to follow Yi Chen to death. At this moment, the system's prompt suddenly sounded. Ding! Lu Jin, Lu Wenxian's loyalty +10. They have advanced to die loyal. After hearing the system's prompt, Yi Chen's lips suddenly curled up. Then, he nodded with a smile and said, If Wenxian wants to command 100,000 soldiers now, you can go to Samsara City first. But the soldiers in Samsara City can only guard Samsara City for the time being. They cannot leave. My lord, I am not in a hurry. At this moment, the Golden Turban Army is rebelling and the demon tribe is invading. I am willing to follow my lord and fight the enemy. Lu Jin was slightly stunned when he heard this. Then, he hurriedly bowed and said, Of course, Lu Jin understood Yi Chen's meaning. It was nothing more than letting him choose whether to go or stay. If he went, of course, he would go to Samsara City. Once there, he could immediately command 100,000 soldiers. If he chose to stay, he would naturally follow Yi Chen. However, he had no soldiers to command at the moment. Lu Jin wanted to command 100,000 soldiers, and Lu Jin did not want to miss this opportunity. He was a general and had just followed Yi Chen. Whether it was to prove himself or to establish himself under Yi Chen in the future, he needed to obtain military exploits personally. It was precisely because of this that Lu Jin did not hesitate to choose to stay and continue to follow Yi Chen to fight against the Golden Turban Army and exterminate the invading demon tribe. Yi Chen glanced at Lu Jin, nodded with a smile, and then asked, That's right. What weapon does Wenxian use? My lord, I use a long spear. Lu Jin was stunned when he heard this. Then, he hurriedly bowed and said. Hearing this, Yi Chen smiled slightly. With a wave of his right hand, a heaven-class spear, a heaven-class armor, and a divine-class cultivation skill appeared in Yi Chen's hand in an instant. Lu Jin was stunned when he saw this. Then he said in shock, My lord, this. Yi Chen had just asked him what kind of weapon he was good at. In the blink of an eye, he had taken out a heaven-grade long spear, a heaven-grade armor, and a saint-grade cultivation technique. Yi Chen's intention was clear. He wanted to reward him. Lu Jin understood Yi Chen's meaning. It was precisely because he understood that his face was full of shock. A heaven-class weapon and a heaven-class armor were already very valuable. If a divine-class cultivation skill was included, the value would be even greater. At this moment, Lu Jin not only did not have a weapon or armor, but even his cultivation skill was at the Emperor class. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that Lu Jin had just followed Yi Chen. He had not made any contributions, but he was directly rewarded by Yi Chen. How could he not be excited and shocked? Looking at the shocked and excited Lejin, Yi Chun said with a smile, Wen Xian is extraordinary. How can you not have a good weapon, armor, and cultivation skill to help you? In the future, Wen Xian will fight bravely on the battlefield and kill all enemies of Samsara. Hearing this, Lu Jin's face suddenly turned solemn. He then bowed solemnly and said, Yes, my lord. Hearing this, Yi Chen nodded with a smile. At this moment, the major of the Samsara Legion, who had gone to convey Yi Chen's order, rode up to Yi Chen on a wild rhinoceros. In the next second, the major of the Samsara Legion dismounted from the rhinoceros and got down on one knee. My lord, the order has been conveyed, but hearing this, Yi Chen frowned and asked, But what? The major of the Samsara Legion hurriedly bowed and said, My lord, that deputy general of Changshan County is extremely arrogant. He refused to divide his troops to guard Zhongshan County because Changshan County and Zhongshan County belong to different counties. Yi Chen's eyes narrowed, a cold light flashing in them. In the next second, Yi Chen took to the air and flew toward the walls of Changshan County. Chapter 453. On the city wall of Changshan County, the deputy general looked at the battlefield and the cavalry of Samsara City outside with uncertainty. He did not expect that this cavalry belonged to the great Han Empire's general of agile cavalry, Yi Chen. If it were someone else, he would not have cared, but it was Yi Chen's. Moreover, Yi Chen even asked him to convey a military order to the county chief of Changshan County, asking him to station some troops in Zhongshan County. If it were someone else, he would have conveyed the order. But it was Yi Chen who asked him to do so. He could not agree to it no matter what. The reason was simple. He and the county chief of Changshan County were both on He Jin's side. If Great General He Jin knew that he was following Yi Chen's orders, he would definitely punish him to the very end. More importantly, he might even kill him. The conflict between Yi Chen and He Jin had spread throughout the imperial court. Everyone knew about it. As He Jin's follower, how could he not know about it? How could he not understand the grudge between He Jin and Yi Chen? Therefore, he refused without hesitation, and his attitude was very domineering. In this way, once General He Jin heard about his behavior, it would be hard for him not to have a meteoric rise. And the excuse he used was perfectly justifiable. This was Changshan County. There was no reason to station some troops in Zhongshan County, unless it was an order from the emperor or the governor of Ji Province. The former was impossible. Lu Hong could not even protect himself now. How could he have the time to care about Zhongshan County? As for the latter, it was even more impossible. There was no governor of Ji Province at the moment. Therefore, what he said was reasonable. The more the deputy general of Changshan County thought about it, the calmer he felt. His fear of Yi Chen also gradually disappeared. They were all officials. Even if there was a big difference in status, they had to be reasonable and follow the law. They could not kill just because they were unhappy. This was exactly why the deputy general of Changshan County was so confident. In his opinion, Yi Chen would not kill him. At most, he would make things difficult for him. Just as the deputy general of Changshan County finished his thought, he suddenly noticed something unusual from the corner of his eye. He hurriedly looked up at the sky. In the next second, a young man in a luxurious robe appeared in front of him. Seeing this, the deputy general of Changshan County City Guard's eyes suddenly went blank. Fly. Fly here. He never imagined that someone could actually fly in the air. While he was still in shock, Yi Chen arrived at the top of the city wall. When the deputy general of Changshan County saw this, he swallowed a mouthful of saliva and bowed nervously, saying, Sir, I'm sorry. I didn't know Lord Immortal had arrived. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you. It was obvious that the deputy general of Changshan County did not recognize Yi Chen at all. He also did not see Yi Chen fly in the air from the Samsara Legion. Otherwise, he would not have said this. Yi Chen glanced at the deputy general of Changshan County. His consciousness moved and instantly enveloped the entire Changshan County. In the next second, Yi Chen raised his right hand and made a grabbing motion in the air. At this moment, an extremely frightened scream rang out from the governor's mansion of Changshan County. Ah! The scream became louder and louder. After 2 breaths, a fat, middle-aged man appeared in the air and flew rapidly toward the city wall. When the deputy general of Changshan County saw this, his face turned pale. How could the deputy general of Changshan County not know who that fat, middle-aged man was? It was precisely because he knew that his face turned ghastly pale. A mysterious immortal had suddenly appeared. Not only had he suddenly appeared, but he had also directly grabbed the Changshan County governor out of thin air. This method and ability were simply unheard of. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that this mysterious immortal clearly had enmity toward the Changshan County governor. Otherwise, he would not have directly captured the Changshan County governor. In this case, the deputy general of Changshan County might very well be the target of the immortal's anger. When he thought of the immortal's anger and the possibility of him being killed, or even his soul being tortured after his death, the deputy general of Changshan County governor felt unwell. Just as the deputy general of Changshan County governor was feeling uneasy, a bang was heard. The Changshan County governor fell heavily on the city wall. The fat middle-aged man originally wanted to continue screaming because it was really painful. However, he forcibly suppressed it. No matter how painful it was, he did not dare to scream. Just now, he suddenly flew up and then flew toward the city wall because he did not know what was going on. Now, no matter how stupid he was, he understood one thing. Someone, or more accurately, an immortal, had attacked him. And this immortal was the young man standing on the city wall. When he thought of this, the Changshan County governor's heart involuntarily thumped. This was because the immortal's face in front of him was too cold. This undoubtedly told him one more thing. The immortal was unhappy, and the source of it was him. When he thought of this, the Changshan County governor felt unwell. If the immortal wanted to deal with him, it would be too easy. It was obvious just now. He was so far away, but he was still directly grabbed in the air and brought here. After regaining his senses, the Changshan County governor tried his best to calm his frightened heart. Then with a bang, he knelt on the ground and bowed loudly. This lowly one greets Lord Immortal. May I know why Lord Immortal is looking for this lowly one? When Yi Chun heard this, he could not help but raise his eyebrows. Then he looked at the middle-aged fatty on the ground and asked, "Are you He Jin's man?" When the Changshan County governor heard this, he shouted without hesitation, "Lord Immortal, this lowly one is not He Jin's man. That bastard He Jin played with power. Everyone has the right to punish him." Yes, yes, Lord Immortal. That bastard He Jin has done all kinds of bad things. Even the heavens will not tolerate it. This lowly one can't wait to eat his bones and eat his flesh. When the Changshan County governor's deputy heard this, he quickly knelt on the ground and shouted with gritted teeth. When Yi Chun heard this, he could not help but smile. He glanced at the Changshan County governor, then looked at the Changshan County governor's deputy and asked, "If that's the case, why did you reject my order when I asked you to pass it on?" When the Changshan County governor's deputy heard this, he was stunned. After a few breaths, he suddenly thought of something and shouted in shock, Hussar, General." Before he could finish his sentence, he stopped abruptly. Then, without thinking, he started kowtowing desperately. Bang, bang, bang. When his forehead was bleeding, he shouted, "This lowly one has sinned. Please forgive this lowly one, Hussar General." At this moment, the Changshan County governor's deputy threw all fear of He Jin's punishment and his future to the back of his mind. Now, there was only regret in his heart. Also, no matter what, he had to beg for Yi Chun's forgiveness. He did not know that the Great Han Empire's Hussar General Yi Chun was a genuine immortal. If he had known this earlier, he would not have dared to be so presumptuous. The Changshan County governor came to his senses at this moment. He immediately breathed a sigh of relief and then hurriedly bowed to Yi Chun solemnly. The Changshan County governor, Niu Duong, greets the Hussar General Chapter 454. For Niu Duong, Yi Qin's identity as the general of agile cavalry was undoubtedly more amiable than his identity as an immortal. Niu Duong didn't have to worry about the former, but he couldn't guarantee the latter. Yi Qin glanced at Niu Duong, the prefectural governor of Changshan Commandery, expressionlessly, and then asked, Zhongshan Commandery has no troops to defend. Are you willing to station some troops there? Yes, I'm willing. I'll send troops to Zhongshan Commandery right away. Please rest assured, General of Agile Cavalry. Niu Duong bowed without hesitation. His attitude was very sincere. In fact, Niu Duong didn't dare to be insincere. Not to mention Yi Qin's identity and strength. He couldn't fool around with the fact that he scolded Yi Jin. If he didn't want Yi Jin to find trouble with him, he would definitely stand on Yi Qin's side and help Yi Qin. If Yi Qin's identity as an immortal was taken into account, Niu Duong wouldn't dare to do that. Seeing it with one's own eyes was better than hearing it. Yi Qin was really an immortal. His strange and unpredictable ability was really terrifying. If he offended Yi Qin or annoyed Yi Qin, he might suddenly fly up and then fall from high altitude. After that, he would say goodbye to the world. This was not the result Niu Duong wanted to see. Therefore, he agreed without hesitation and was ready to do everything Yi Qin ordered. He was ready to do everything Yi Qin ordered. After hearing the answer he wanted, Yi Qin nodded. Then he raised his right hand and pointed at the deputy general of Changshan Commandery. When Niu Duong saw this, he was just about to speak when a deafening sound of thunder suddenly rang out. Boom! Crack, crack, crack! In the next second, a bolt of lightning as thick as an arm fell from the sky and instantly hit the deputy general of Changshan Commandery, whose face was pale and covered with blood. Bang! It was a loud sound. The deputy general of Changshan County did not even have time to react before he was blasted into pieces by the falling tears. His body parts splattered all over the place. When Changshan Commandery Governor Niu Duong saw this, his pupils constricted and he could not help but shudder. In the next second, Niu Duong knelt on the ground with a bang and then hurriedly kowtowed and shouted, General of Agile Cavalry, this official swears that I will definitely do according to General of Agile Cavalry's request. If I violate it, may the heavens strike me with 5 thunders. Yi Qin could summon lightning with a raise of his hand, and it was even on a sunny day. Niu Duong would never believe that this was not the doing of an immortal. It was also because of this that Niu Duong hurriedly swore. As for his motive, it was none other than to be afraid that Yi Qin would casually strike him with lightning and kill him. He didn't want to die. He wanted to live on. When Yi Qin heard this, he glanced at the charred flesh on the ground and curled his lips in disdain. He then looked at the prefectural governor of Changshan Commandery and said, Do not pretend to be obedient, or else. When Niu Duong heard this, he suddenly shuddered and hurriedly bowed. This official doesn't dare. This official doesn't dare. When Yi Qin heard this, he glanced at Niu Duong and directly rose into the air and flew toward the Samsara Legion. Niu Duong was looking down when he suddenly realized that Yi Qin's feet had left the ground and then disappeared. He could not help but be stunned and then looked up. In the next second, Niu Duong was stunned. He had seen Yi Qin use another immortal method. He flew away. Niu Duong said in a daze as he watched Yi Qin fly away quickly. Soon, Niu Duong came back to his senses. He then pointed at the fragments of the deputy general's corpse that had been struck by lightning and shouted, This person colluded with Jin and conspired against the law. He has been struck down by lightning. As soon as Niu Duong finished speaking, the soldiers on the city wall who had been shocked by Yi Qin's series of immortal methods immediately came back to their senses and shouted without hesitation, Yes. Prefectural governor. Obviously, it was not only Niu Duong who did not dare to say that the deputy general had been struck to death by Yi Qin's lightning. Even the soldiers on the city wall did not dare to say it. Not only did they not dare to say it, but they also could not help but hate the deputy general. As for the reason, it was very simple. The deputy general was too good at showing off. He did not even give face to the general of agile cavalry. Who would have thought that the military god of the Great Han Empire, Yi Qin, was actually an immortal. He even flew over directly. Fortunately, Yi Chun did not find trouble with them. If Yi Chun took out his anger on them, they would also be struck to death by lightning. When Niu Duong heard this, he nodded with satisfaction and shouted, Eugene. When a centurion heard this, he hesitated for a moment. Then, he stepped forward and bowed. Prefectural Governor, General Yu has already gone to seek refuge with the General of Agile Cavalry. When Niu Duong heard this, he was suddenly stunned. Then his face stiffened. Damn it. How could I be so stupid? Why didn't I think of seeking refuge with the General of Agile Cavalry just now? Niu Diwang's words were full of deep regret because he was too afraid just now. He forgot that he could choose to follow Yi Chun. Prefectural Governor, the General of Agile Cavalry ordered us to divide our forces to guard Zhongshan County. When the centurion saw Niu Diwang's face full of regret, he could not help but remind him. When Niu Duong heard this, he immediately came back to his senses and hurriedly shouted, Yes. This matter cannot be delayed. You will lead 5,000 men to Zhongshan County. You must guard Zhongshan County well. There cannot be any mistakes. Yes, Prefectural Governor. When the centurion heard this, his eyes suddenly lit up. Then he bowed without hesitation. Asking him to lead 5,000 men to Zhongshan County was undoubtedly a promotion for him. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that the General of Agile Cavalry, Yi Chun, had appointed him to guard Zhongshan County. Once he went there, it was very likely that he would meet the General of Agile Cavalry again. Even if he did not meet him, the General of Agile Cavalry would know that he was the one leading the troops to guard Zhongshan County. Then, he would have more leverage to follow the General of Agile Cavalry, Yi Chun. In the sky, Yi Chun, who was flying, suddenly raised the corners of his mouth. At least he knew how to adapt to the situation. It was because Yi Chun's divine awareness had been covering Zhongshan County. Therefore, Yi Chun heard all the conversations on the city wall of Zhongshan County. This result was undoubtedly what Yi Chun wanted to see. After all, Yi Chun had accepted the soldiers guarding Zhongshan County and promised them that he would let the prefectural governor of Zhongshan County guard Zhongshan County. Then, they could go to Samsara City on their own. Yi Chun did not want to break his promise. After all, Yi Chun was the General of Agile Cavalry of the Great Han Empire, the Marquis Champion, and the governor of Yuzhou Province. His status was prominent, and his strength had reached the Purple Mansion realm. If Yi Chun broke his promise, Yi Chun alone would not be able to get over it, let alone others. Just as Yi Chun was thinking about this, Guan Er, Zhang San, Zhang He, Chu Yi, and Gao Lan, who had just cleared out the Golden Turban Army, dismounted from their horses in unison with 500,000 soldiers of Samsara City. Then they knelt down on one knee and saluted loudly. Greetings, my lord. 500,000 people shouted in unison. Their voices shook the sky. In the sky, Yi Chun could not help but smile when he heard the saluting voices of his subordinates. Then he stopped in midair and shouted, Clean up the battlefield. Hurry up and clean up the battlefield. Take away anything that is gold rank and above. After an hour, we will move out. Chapter 455. Yes, Lord. When Guan Er, Zhang San, Zhang Jing, Chu Yi, and Gao Lan heard this, their eyes lit up as they bowed. Their voices were filled with excitement. As for the reason, it was simple. Their lord, Yi Chun, was going to attack Julu. How could Guan Er, Zhang San, Zhang Jing, Chu Yi, and Gao Lan not know what kind of place Julu was? That was the base of Zhang Ju, the founder of the Golden Scarf Rebels. Attacking Julu meant that they were going to attack Zhang Ju. That was the main event of this rebellion. As generals, they all wanted to obtain merits and prove themselves. How could they not want to attack Zhang Ju? Yi Chun glanced at his excited subordinates and nodded with a chuckle. Then, he flew to the Samsara Legion outside the battlefield. Just as Yi Chun got on top of the Pegasus Shao Jin, a faint but muffled rumbling sound came from the east. Rumble, rumble. The rumble was deep and messy. It was obvious that it did not come from the cavalry. Hearing this, Yi Chen frowned. He released his divine sense and instantly covered the surrounding 300 miles. In the next second, Yi Chen's divine sense locked onto an area 30 miles to the east. Over there, a group of players numbering in the millions were running for their lives. Behind them and on both sides were at least 600,000 players. However, more than half of them were injured. Seeing this, Yi Chen raised his eyebrows. It seemed that Yun Zheng, Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, and Zhao Ming had led their troops to Hejian. Otherwise, this group of players would not have come from the east with more than half of them injured. Zhao Yunzheng, Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, and Zhao Ming were under Yi Chen's orders to eliminate the demons in Zhongwu, Bohai, Leiling, and Hejian, as well as Jinjin. Now that the 600,000-strong demon army had come from the east, it was obvious that they had been chased here. The millions of players that they were chasing alone would not be able to deal any damage to the monsters. Otherwise, there would not be a situation where millions of players were being chased by 600,000 monsters. Yi Chen was about to give the order when he suddenly remembered something. He frowned and looked at the demon race army again. When Yi Chen saw the arrangement of the demon race's army, his eyes narrowed. Could it be that there were demons lying in ambush in the west? No, there are no demons within 150 kilometers to the west. Then what was up with the demon race's formation? At this moment, although the 600,000-strong goblin army outnumbered the players and their formation was a little loose, they had the players firmly in the middle. As they drove towards Yi Chen, they devoured the players who caught up with them. In Yi Chen's previous life, the monster army of the Three Kingdoms Beginners District had never formed a formation. They would only attack as a group without any order to speak of. Moreover, they wouldn't leave humans alone. However, the demon race army that was chasing the players not only formed a formation, but it was also so strange that most of the monsters did not eat the players, especially the monsters on both sides of the running players. They were obviously drooling, but none of them opened their mouths to eat the players. Even if the players ran over and wanted to rush out, they would only kill them on the spot. They would not eat the players' corpses. They clearly wanted to eat someone, but they resisted the urge to do so. They clearly didn't know how to arrange troops, but they still chose to form a 3 encirclement without one formation. With all of these added together, it was hard not to attract Yi Chen's attention. Was there another goblin from the lower realm? Or, thinking of this, Yi Chen's divine sense began to carefully examine the demon army that was surrounded by 3 guards and 1 guard. When Yi Chen's divine consciousness locked onto the monsters that were constantly devouring the players, his eyes suddenly widened. 10,000 goblin soul devouring formation. He saw that on the foreheads of the monsters that were constantly devouring the players, there was a scarlet line that was as thick as a pinky finger. As they continued to devour the players, the strange scarlet line on their foreheads began to slowly grow. If other people saw this, they would definitely think that this was a strange occurrence, or they would not even think that it was a big deal. However, Yi Chen did not. Yi Chen had been reborn and knew a lot of things. Previously, Yi Chen did not take a closer look, but now that he did, he immediately discovered the fundamental reason why this demon race army defied common sense. They were preparing for the 10,000 goblin soul devouring formation, a formation exclusive to the goblins. To be precise, those monsters that were constantly devouring the players were the formation base of the 10,000 goblin soul devouring formation. Once the scarlet line on their foreheads completely appeared, it would form a special goblin rune. When 10,000 monsters with the special goblin rune on their foreheads joined together, they could directly form the 10,000 goblin soul devouring formation. The formation looked simple, but its power was not weak. Even with Yi Chen's current realm, he would not be able to gain any advantage against the 10,000 goblin soul devouring formation formed by 10,000 monsters without using his spiritual treasure. One could only imagine how powerful this formation was. Of course, if Yi Chen encountered it, he would not be able to not use his spiritual treasure. However, this was not important. What was important was that the 10,000 goblin soul devouring formation came from the Primordial Age. The stronger the formation base, or rather, the greater the number of monsters that formed the formation, the stronger the formation's power. If the number of monsters that formed the 10,000 goblin soul-devouring formation reached 100,000, it would not be a big problem to kill everyone in Luoyang at the same time. It seems that this 10,000 goblin soul-devouring formation was spread by the Black Dog Goblin that I killed. Otherwise, the goblin race players in the real world would not be able to master the 10,000 goblin soul-devouring formation that came from the Primordial Age. This is to deal with Lu Hong, to deal with me. At this thought, Yi Chen's eyes suddenly widened, and then he shouted, "Listen to my orders. Turn to the east, change your bows and arrows, and prepare to annihilate the goblin race army." The goblin race players in the real world had mastered the 10,000 goblin soul devouring formation and were now preparing it. It was 100% to deal with Lu Hong, to deal with Yi Chen. Of course, based on the current situation, the goblin race's first target was definitely Lu Hong. This was because if they killed Lu Hong, they would be able to steal the destiny of the human race, and then the goblin race would become the main characters of the world. This was also the goblin race's ultimate goal in invading the human world this time. Yi Chen did not know before, but now that he knew, how could he let the goblin race complete the 10,000 goblin soul devouring formation? One had to know that Yi Chen wanted to conquer the world, then establish a country, and finally ascend to the Primordial Age. If the goblin race succeeded, Yi Chen, the future lord of the human race, would definitely be greatly affected. Therefore, Yi Chen could not let the goblin race's plan succeed. He could not use the 10,000 goblin soul-devouring formation to kill Lu Hong and steal the destiny of the human race. When the Samsara Legion heard this, they immediately turned their horses around, picked up their bows, and knocked their bows, aiming at the empty east. They did not hear any sounds, nor did they see any goblin race, but this did not stop them from carrying out Yi Chen's orders. Chapter 456. Gui Yi, who was standing beside Yi Chen, glanced at the east and then looked at Yi Chen. He bowed with a smile and said, "My lord, since the monster tribe army came from the east, Yun Zheng and the others must have arrived at Hejin." Clearly, Gui Yi had also figured out the reason why the demonic army had come here. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that Zhao Yunzheng, Dian Xiong, Gao Shun, and Zhao Meng were ferocious in leading their troops. Otherwise, they would not have reached Hejin so quickly. This was undoubtedly a good thing for Yi Chen and Samsara City. Therefore, Gui Yi was happy for Yi Chen and Samsara City. Hearing this, Yi Chen nodded with a smile and said, "Feng Xiao is right. Feng Xiao is right. In a while, Feng Xiao will have to do his best to restrain the demon army." "Yes, my lord. My lord." When Gui Yi heard this, he was slightly taken aback and hurriedly bowed in response. Gui Yi understood Yi Chen's meaning. At this moment, Yi Chen's realm was far beyond the highest realm in the mortal world. Whether it was killing the monster tribe or the Golden Turban Army, his experience was so low that it was no different from having no experience at all. If Yi Chen took action, he could easily destroy the monster tribe army or the Golden Turban Army. But in this way, it would be difficult for the soldiers of Samsara City to improve. At that time, all of Yi Chen's subordinates would ascend to the untainted land with Yi Chen. However, their strength would still be so weak. They would be lucky if they did not trouble Yi Chen. How could they work for Yi Chen? After all, the untainted land would be full of dangers after immortal ascension. If the soldiers of Samsara City were not strong enough, they would be eaten by the monster tribe. They could do nothing but rely on Yi Chen. Not to mention, there were countless weak civilians who would ascend to the untainted land with Yi Chen. Therefore, it was impossible for Yi Chen to snatch experience from his subordinates. That bit of experience was not as useful to Yi Chen as it was for Yi Chen to cultivate alone at this moment. Moreover, even if all of them were to be done by his subordinates, Yi Chen would still be able to get some EXP. The only bad thing was that Yi Chen couldn't share his experience with his subordinates. Otherwise, Yi Chen would not have made such a decision. As time passed, the soldiers of Samsara City gradually heard the dull rumbling of the earth. At the same time, they heard the screams and curses of the players. When the players and the goblin army appeared in the sights of the Samsara Legion, the Samsara Legion veterans opened their eyes and infused their innate true chi into their bows and arrows. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The buzzing sound of arrows could be heard from all over the Samsara Legion. These veterans of the Samsara Legion all had official positions and new recruits under their command. Therefore, their positions changed accordingly. Otherwise, the buzzing sound of arrows would definitely be heard from one place and not from all over the place. Gua-yi, who had been watching from the east, was stunned when he saw the sudden appearance of the players. He then looked at Yi-chun and said, "My lord, these players." Yi-chun naturally understood what Gua-yi meant. He was asking Yi-chun if he should care about the lives of these players. However, Yi-chun did not care about this at all. Moreover, this was a virtual world. The players' privilege was that they would not die in real life. Of course, this was on the premise that these players were not killed by Yi-chun. Otherwise, they would really die in real life. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that if Yi-chun did not intervene, none of these players would be able to survive. If Yi-chun intervened, even if he accidentally injured some of them, the rest would still be able to survive. As for what the players thought, Yi-chun couldn't be bothered. If they were grateful, then so be it. If they cursed, then Yi-chun didn't mind killing them all. At this thought, Yi-chun said without hesitation, "Ignore them. Cover them with attacks." "Yes, my lord. My lord." Gua-yi's eyes lit up when he heard this. He bowed and then looked at the battlefield. In the next second, Gua-yi waved his right hand, and a buzzing sound could be heard from the sky. A panoramic map instantly appeared in the originally empty sky. The players who were running wildly and the goblin army who were chasing after them all appeared on the map. Yi-chun looked at the map that suddenly appeared in the sky and could not help but raise his eyebrows. Gua-yi's skill was similar to divine sense. It allowed him to see a panoramic view within a certain range. In the Eldritch world, Gua-yi's cultivation realm would definitely soar. Then, he would develop divine sense. When the time came, this skill would combine with divine sense. Even if the goblin army had treasures that could avoid detection from divine sense, they would not be able to escape from the combination of these two. Holy **T. This was simply a super humanoid radar. At this thought, Yi-chun's eyes lit up. Divine sense could see through illusions and instantly control everything within the range of divine sense. However, there were still some special treasures that could avoid detection from divine sense. Especially in the Eldritch world, the goblin army had all kinds of strange abilities and countless treasures. There were even treasures that could prevent detection from divine sense. Although there were not many of them, if Yi-chun really encountered them, he would definitely be ambushed by the goblin army. When that happened, the losses would be huge. And with Gua-yi around, there was no need to worry about this. When the goblin army launched a large-scale attack, even if there were treasures that could avoid detection from divine sense, they would not be able to escape Gua-yi's detection skill. Of course, if one's strength reached a certain level, treasures that could avoid detection from divine sense would be a joke. However, in the early stages, even Yi-chun would be helpless against treasures that could avoid detection from divine sense. Rumble. The dull rumbling of the ground became louder. The players' cries, curses, and cries for help became clearer and clearer. Yi-chun. It's Yi-chun's army. Boss Yi-chun, save us. Save us. Boss Yi-chun, quickly kill these goblin army. Clamorous cries for help were heard as the ground rumbled as the demon race ran. At the same time, the goblin army's cries of alarm could be heard. Yi-chun. It's Yi-chun. Damn it. Why is that bastard Yi-chun here? What should we do? Should we retreat first? Nonsense. Of course we have to retreat. Damn it. That bastard subordinates forced us to flee in all directions with just a small army. Now that this bastard has personally led an even larger army to block us, how can we defeat him? What's there to be afraid of? Let's attack together and eliminate Yi-chun first. Once we eliminate him, our goblin army's plan will be more likely to succeed. Eliminate him, my ass. Have you forgotten how many of our kind Yi Chen has killed? He's very powerful. The previous world announcement even stated that he has advanced to the Purple Mansion realm. Do you dare to fight with him? Hurry up and retreat. The plan is the most important. Now is not the time to fight with Yi Chen head-on. Everyone stop. We're retreating. The goblin army's stampede came to a sudden halt following the command to stop. The Samsara Legion and He might not have heard the conversation between the goblin army's goblin army, but Yi Chen heard it clearly. When he saw the goblin army stopping their pursuit of the players and preparing to escape, Yi Chen sneered and looked at Yi. Continue with the plan. I'll stop these bastards. Don't even think about escaping today. After Yi Chen finished speaking, he straightened his sword fingers and activated his divine sense. An ancient golden army character instantly appeared on the ground. The army character was surrounded by golden light, forming a huge golden disc. Within it, tiny golden runes were constantly swimming. Yi Chen, who was riding on little gold, was standing in the middle of it. At the same time, the sound of the great Tao could be heard. Chapter 457. The strange scene that appeared when Yi Chen used the army formula shocked everyone. Both the players who were being chased and the goblins who were chasing after the players widened their eyes. What? What is this? This move is too cool. He's a magician who transcends this era. Yi Chen. It would be great if I could learn Boss Yi Chen's ultimate move, Learn My Foot. Even if you learn it, can you be as good as Boss Yi Chen? Stop comparing. I'm relieved to see Boss Yi Chen's ultimate move. I don't have to worry about being eaten by the goblins anymore. Damn it. What kind of spell is Yi Chen using? Why do I feel numb? Retreat. We can't wait any longer. Otherwise, we'll all be in danger. The human and goblins players shouted one after another. They did not expect Yi Chen to have the ability to create such cool lighting effects out of thin air. Of course, in comparison, the human players were more excited because Yi Chen would definitely attack the goblins. The goblins players, on the other hand, were terrified. They turned around and fled without hesitation. They wanted to leave this place as soon as possible and avoid Yi Chen as far as possible. Yi Chen glanced at the fleeing goblins and smiled coldly. Then, he rose into the air. At the same time, the sound of countless weapons vibrating could be heard. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The spears in the hands of the Samsara Legion were vibrating uncontrollably. In the next second, 510,000 spears flew from the hands of the Samsara Legion soldiers and flew toward Yi Chen. The players widened their eyes when they saw this. They're flying? Damn it. It's really possible to become an immortal in this world. No wonder boss. Yi Chen keeps getting good items. With his ability, it's hard not to. Just as the players were shocked by Yi Chen's ability to fly in the air, Yi Chen's cold voice rang out. If you don't want to die, leave quickly. Those who dare to clash with the army will die. Yi Chen was naturally warning these players to leave as soon as possible. After all, the Samsara Legion was about to start a massacre. If they didn't leave, they might be killed as well. Yi Chen wasn't a good person. He would kill anyone who needed to be killed without hesitation. However, Yi Chen wasn't someone who would kill indiscriminately. That was why Yi Chen issued a warning for the players to leave quickly. Of course, if the players didn't leave, Yi Chen wouldn't mind clearing them all. However, Yi Chen would say what needed to be said. As for what to do, it was up to the players themselves. After Yi Chen finished his sentence, he flew towards the escaping goblin army. With a thought, the densely packed spears in the sky flew away with Yi Chen. On the ground, the millions of players who had just escaped looked at each other before fleeing into the distance. They understood Yi Chen's intention. They couldn't stay there any longer, and they couldn't leave in the direction of the Samsara Legion. Otherwise, they would be killed on the spot. As for staying behind, it wasn't that they didn't think about it, but they didn't dare to. The 600,000-strong goblin army had chased them like dead dogs. On the other hand, Yi Chen's army could deal with the 600,000-strong goblin army. Their brains had never been kicked by a donkey, so they knew what to do. At the back of the Samsara Legion, Gua Yi saw Yi Chen flying towards the goblin army, and the players retreating quickly. He smiled and pointed in the air as he shouted, "Sinkhole! Boom! Boom! Boom!" A series of earth-shattering sounds were heard. The ground under the feet of the escaping goblin army collapsed instantly, and a huge pit hundreds of meters deep appeared on the ground. All the goblin army fell into the huge pit without exception. However, it wasn't over yet. Gua Yi pointed again and shouted, "Swamp! Buzz, buzz, buzz!" A series of buzzing sounds were heard immediately. The goblin army that fell into the huge pit didn't even have time to stabilize themselves before they sank deep into the swamp. The more they struggled, the deeper they sank. They couldn't get out at all. Realizing that they couldn't escape, the goblin army became anxious. They roared at the sky without hesitation. Roar! 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 In the next second, goblin army that was dozens of meters tall and even hundreds of meters tall appeared in the huge pit. They jumped towards the ground one by one. In the sky, Yi Chen, who was surrounded by 510,000 spears, twitched his mouth in disdain when he saw the goblin army jumping towards the ground. Trying to escape? Not so easy. Thinking of this, Yi Chen pointed his sword finger at the goblin army jumping towards the ground. In the next second, a series of violent air explosions were heard. Bang, bang, bang. Tens of thousands of spears with golden light pierced towards the goblin army, jumping towards the ground at an extremely fast speed. In the next second, a series of sounds of spears piercing through bones were heard. Crack, crack, crack. Those demonic beasts that had already leaped out of the huge pit instantly widened their beastly eyes even more. Then, each and every one of them let out extremely mournful howls. Roar! Roar! In the next second, all the goblin army, jumping towards the ground, fell to the ground without exception. In the huge pit, the goblin army that was just about to jump towards the ground narrowed their eyes when they saw this. They didn't expect Yi Chen's attack to be so fierce. They were all demonic beasts. Their bodies were strong, and their bones were unbelievably hard. However, Yi Chen was able to break the legs of tens of thousands of demonic beasts with just a casual point of his finger. Most of the weapons controlled by Yi Chen were diamond level. These goblin army didn't know about them in the past because they had never come into contact with them. However, after coming to the human world, some of them had encountered diamond-level weapons. They admitted that those weapons could hurt them, but breaking their bones was just wishful thinking. It was simply impossible. However, this impossible obviously did not apply to Yi Chen. Not only did he break their bones, but he also penetrated them. What was even more ridiculous was that he had broken 2 leg bones at once. Damn it, how is this possible? That's a diamond-level spear. How can it penetrate bones? Damn it, Yi Chen is not letting us out. He wants to catch us like a turtle in a jar. Damn it, Yi Chen wants us all dead, not just me. Idiot, that's a word from the human world. Stop arguing. Hurry up and think of a way. How can we leave this place? If this goes on, we will all die. There's no way. Yi Chen is a bastard. He clearly doesn't want us to go up. Who's going up? Damn it. This bastard wants his subordinates to kill us. Yi Chen, you bastard. If you have the guts, fight us one-on-one. Don't use underhanded means. The demonic beasts in the huge pit were discussing, shouting, cursing, and provoking one another. Yi Chen, who was standing in the sky, naturally heard their shouts. However, this was not a problem for Yi Chen at this moment. In the past, Yi Chen would definitely kill these goblin army himself. This was because at that time, Yi Chen was in the same realm as them. If Yi Chen wanted to be clear, he would definitely fight these goblin army head-on. Moreover, that would also help Yi Chen's cultivation of the 9 revolutions mysterious art. But now, Yi Chen was high and mighty. These goblin army were just a bunch of ants to Yi Chen. How could Yi Chen care about these goblin army's provocation? Behind the Samsara Legion, Gua Yi, who had been watching the battlefield, could not help but stroke his beard. He then looked at the Samsara Legion and shouted, "Far shot, 10 rounds." that you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.